Imagine stumbling upon a chest filled with gold coins, priceless jewels, or artifacts that have been hidden for centuries, their secrets lost to time. Around the world, countless treasures vanished without a trace, leaving behind mysteries that continue to captivate explorers, historians, and adventurers alike. From the depths of the ocean to remote mountain caves, these lost riches tell stories of daring escapes, legendary heists, and civilizations long gone. Some are linked to kings, pirates, or emperors, while others remain anonymous, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover them. Stick around as we explore the 27 lost treasures that are not just legends, they are real fortunes that have disappeared, their locations shrouded in mystery. Buried, sunken, or hidden in plain sight, each treasure carries secrets that could rewrite history and spark the imagination of anyone who dares to search for them. The Amber Room. During the early 18th century, a room unlike any other was created in Europe, a chamber so lavish and unusual that it became known as the Amber Room, often described by those who saw it as the eighth wonder of the world. It was a masterpiece of gilded panels, mosaics, and carvings, constructed entirely from amber, gold leaf, and mirrors, the warm glow of the fossilized resin casting an almost unreal light that seemed to shift as one moved inside. Originally designed in Prussia, the room was gifted to Tsar Peter the Great in 1716, a gesture meant to strengthen the fragile alliance between Prussia and Russia, and soon after it was installed in the Catherine Palace near St. Petersburg, where it became one of the most prized treasures of the Russian Empire. The room was not static, for it was reworked and expanded over the decades, until it filled an area of more than 150 square feet, lined with amber panels backed by gold and silver, each panel carved with intricate designs. Visitors from across Europe who entered its space described the sensation as overwhelming, as though they were stepping into a place suspended between art and myth, and the Russian royal family considered it not merely a decorative chamber but a symbol of imperial power. By the beginning of the 20th century, the Amber Room was already 2 centuries old, and while amber is delicate and vulnerable to heat and light, the panels had been carefully maintained, so that the chamber retained its glow. The outbreak of the Second World War changed everything. In 1941, as German forces launched Operation Barbarossa and advanced into Soviet territory, the Catherine Palace and its surrounding estate were evacuated, though many objects proved too large or too fragile to move. The Amber Room was among these. Curators attempted to remove the panels and ship them eastward to safety, but the brittle amber began to crack as soon as it was lifted from the walls. In desperation, staff tried to disguise the room by covering the panels with simple wallpaper, hoping to make them appear unremarkable to any soldiers who might enter. The attempt was futile. By October 1941, Nazi troops reached Pushkin, and the palace was occupied. The Amber Room was immediately recognized, dismantled within days, and packed into crates under the orders of German officers. These crates were sent to Königsberg in East Prussia, now the city of Kaliningrad, where the room was reassembled inside Königsberg Castle. For nearly 2 years it was displayed to the public, a stolen trophy of war, admired by German citizens who had never seen such a chamber before. Photographs taken at the time are the last confirmed images of the complete Amber Room. As the war turned against Germany and Allied bombing raids intensified, Königsberg became a target. In August 1944, the city was heavily bombed, and parts of the castle were destroyed by fire. Reports about what happened next diverged sharply. Some accounts say the Amber Room was dismantled again and loaded onto crates intended for evacuation. Others suggest it was burned within the castle's walls as the fires raged. The lack of reliable documentation leaves the fate of the chamber clouded in uncertainty. In April 1945, Soviet forces captured Königsberg, and by then the Amber Room had vanished. No crates, no panels, no documented shipment were found. For the Soviets, who considered the room a cultural jewel, its loss was devastating. Stalin himself ordered an immediate investigation, but the records revealed almost nothing conclusive. Over the decades that followed, countless rumours surfaced that the panels had been hidden in a mine, that they had been loaded onto a ship sunk in the Baltic Sea, or that they still remained buried somewhere beneath the ruins of Königsberg Castle. Each lead drew treasure hunters, yet none produced the missing chamber. One of the most persistent theories points to the Wilhelm Gustloff, or another German vessel that was sunk in the chaotic evacuations of 1945. with thousands of lives and possibly priceless cargo lost beneath the Baltic waters. Divers have searched wrecks across the sea, but no trace of the amber panels has been confirmed. Another theory insists that German officers secretly buried the crates in a mine in Thuringia or Saxony, regions filled with tunnels and caves, though repeated expeditions have come back empty-handed. Some researchers believe the room was destroyed in the 1944 bombing, and that the fragments, delicate and flammable, were reduced to ash, leaving only rumours to explain its disappearance. Despite decades of searching, no definitive discovery has been made. In 1997, a single piece, a mosaic panel from the Amber Room, surfaced in Germany, having been kept by the family of a soldier who had taken it as a souvenir. This was the first physical fragment recovered in half a century, and its appearance renewed hope that more of the room might still survive somewhere. Russian and German investigators pursued the trail, but again it dissolved into silence. The mystery has become one of the most enduring of the war, an unsolved puzzle that captures the imagination of historians, treasure hunters, and governments alike. Today, the Catherine Palace houses a painstaking reconstruction of the Amber Room, completed in 2003 after more than 2 decades of work. Craftsmen studied the few surviving photographs and fragments to rebuild the panels piece by piece, using tons of amber and gold to create what visitors can see now. Yet even as tourists step into this replica, there is a lingering sense of absence, a reminder that the original masterpiece is still missing. The real Amber Room, the one that dazzled the eyes of 18th century nobles and vanished under the chaos of war, remains lost. The story of the Amber Room continues to fascinate because it embodies both beauty and tragedy, the height of artistic achievement and the depths of human destruction. It stands as a reminder that even the most extraordinary creations can vanish in moments of violence, leaving only fragments of memory and speculation behind. Somewhere, perhaps in the ruins of Königsberg, in the depths of the Baltic, or in a forgotten cavern, the panels may still exist, waiting for someone to uncover them. Or perhaps they're gone forever, their glow extinguished by fire more than 70 years ago. The absence of an answer keeps the mystery alive, making the Amber Room one of the most haunting lost treasures in history. The Treasure of Lima. In the early years of the 19th century, Peru was on the edge of upheaval, and the Spanish colonial authorities feared that their most prized possessions might soon fall into the hands of revolutionaries. Among the treasures of Lima were gold, silver and jewels collected over centuries of rule, along with priceless religious artifacts that had been gathered from across South America. In 1820, with the independence movement growing stronger, Spanish officials decided to move this immense wealth out of Lima and away from danger, entrusting it to men they believed could be trusted to guard it until order returned. What followed was not just a tale of loyalty gone wrong, but the creation of one of the greatest mysteries of lost treasure in history. The responsibility for this cargo was given to Captain William Thompson, a British sailor who commanded the ship Mary Dear. Thompson and his crew were ordered to sail the treasure away from Lima to safety, transporting it to Mexico for safekeeping. According to contemporary accounts, the treasure included more than 200 chests filled with coins, bars of silver, and religious relics made of gold, as well as an ornate life-size statue of the Virgin Mary carved entirely of precious stones and gold. The estimated value at the time was staggering, and in today's terms, it would be worth well over $1 billion. To the Spaniards, the plan seemed sound, but they underestimated the temptation that such an immense fortune would place before the men guarding it. Instead of carrying out the mission, Thompson and his crew betrayed their employers. After sailing out of Lima with the treasure, they murdered the Spanish guards on board and seized the entire hoard for themselves. The decision to keep the fortune set them on a course that ensured both fame and doom, for the treasure was too vast and too famous to be easily disposed of. Knowing that they could not simply spend it without drawing immediate suspicion, the crew decided to hide it. Their chosen location, according to later testimony and persistent legends, was Cocos Island, a small rugged patch of land off the coast of Costa Rica in the Pacific Ocean. Cocos Island was an ideal choice for concealment. Covered in dense jungle, ringed by cliffs, and nearly uninhabited, it had long been a place whispered about among sailors and pirates as a potential hiding spot. Thompson and his men are believed to have rowed ashore with the treasure and buried it in a series of deep pits, though the exact method and location remain unknown. Some versions of the story suggest they split the hoard into several caches, hoping that even if one was discovered, the others would remain hidden. With their task complete, the crew set sail once again, confident that they could one day return and retrieve their plunder when the danger had passed. Their plan unravelled when the Spanish Navy captured the Mary Dear not long after. Most of Thompson's crew were executed for piracy, though Thompson himself and a single sailor were spared on the condition that they reveal where the treasure had been hidden. The two men agreed to guide the Spaniards back to Cocos Island, but once they arrived, Thompson managed to escape into the jungle, never to be seen again. The sailor who remained with the Spanish either died before revealing enough detail or misled them deliberately, for no trace of the treasure was found. What might have been a simple recovery turned into the beginning of a legend that has lasted more than 2 centuries. Over the years, countless expeditions have ventured to Cocos Island in search of the treasure. Pirates, adventurers, and later professional treasure hunters all tried their luck, often with government backing or private financing. The island itself became the subject of endless maps, rumours and supposed clues, with claims that certain carvings on rocks marked the burial sites, or that old charts from Thompson's time held hidden codes. Yet despite the intensity of these efforts, nothing definitive has ever been unearthed. Treasure hunters reported finding signs of digging or empty pits, but the hoard itself remained elusive. An American explorer, August Gisler, became one of the most renowned treasure hunters when he relocated to Cocos Island in the late 1800s, devoting almost 20 years to excavating its soil. He claimed to have uncovered a few gold coins, but never anything that matched the vast scale of the Lima treasure. Later expeditions, including those sponsored in the 20th century by wealthy backers and even Hollywood figures, brought advanced equipment such as metal detectors and ground-penetrating radar, but the results were always the same: hints, rumours, and disappointment. The Costa Rican government, which administers Cocos Island as a national park, eventually restricted treasure hunting there to protect its environment. Even so, the legend has never faded. Each decade brings new groups convinced that they will be the ones to succeed where others have failed, armed with new technology or fresh interpretations of old documents. Some insist that the treasure was never buried on Cocos at all, claiming instead that Thompson may have hidden it on another island, or even along the Central American coast. The uncertainty has only made the story more compelling, because no one can say with certainty where the fortune lies. What makes the treasure of Lima so enduring is not just the sheer wealth it represents, but the mixture of betrayal, secrecy, and possibility that clings to every version of the tale. Unlike many legendary hoards, this one was real, documented by Spanish records and accounts from the time, and its disappearance can be traced to specific names and dates. Captain William Thompson's betrayal turned an act of safekeeping into an enduring mystery, and his decision to vanish into the jungle of Cocos Island sealed the fate of the treasure. Whether it remains buried beneath the tangled roots and volcanic soil of the island, or was spirited away to some other hiding place, its whereabouts continue to elude discovery. To this day, the treasure is considered one of the largest unrecovered hoards in history, and the legend of its burial continues to inspire dreams of unimaginable wealth, lying just beyond reach. Each failed expedition deepens the mystery, reinforcing the idea that the treasure is still waiting somewhere, untouched for over 200 years. The silence of Cocos Island, broken only by waves and the cries of seabirds, offers no answers, but it leaves space for speculation, keeping alive the hope that one day the hoard will be uncovered and the treasure of Lima will finally return to light. The lost Inca gold of the Langanetes. Deep in the rugged mountains of Ecuador lies a mystery that has haunted explorers for centuries, a story tied to the final days of the Inca Empire and the immense wealth they tried to protect. When the Spanish conquistador Francisco Pizarro captured Atahualpa, the last great emperor of the Incas, in 1532 a ransom was demanded for his release. The price was staggering: a room filled with gold and 2 more rooms filled with silver, an offering so vast it required the resources of an empire to assemble. From Cusco to Quito, treasures were gathered, and caravans of llamas carried ornaments, statues, and precious metal toward the city of Cajamarca, where Atahualpa was held. According to chroniclers, much of this ransom did arrive, enough to fill a chamber with gold up to the height of a man's arm. But before the payment could be completed, Pizarro ordered Atahualpa executed in July 1533, a betrayal that shattered any trust the Incas still held. In the wake of his death, loyal generals and priests halted the transport of the remaining treasure, choosing instead to hide it from the Spaniards who had already revealed their cruelty. This is where the story of the lost gold begins, for the missing portion of the ransom was said to be hidden somewhere in the Langanetes, a mountain range so remote and treacherous that even today it remains difficult to navigate. The Langanetes are a harsh and unforgiving place, filled with jagged peaks, heavy rainfall, and thick clouds that shroud the valleys in near-permanent mist. For the Incas, this terrain offered the perfect hiding ground, a natural fortress where the Spanish would struggle to survive. Legends tell that Inca generals ordered the treasure to be carried deep into the mountains, where it was concealed in caves, lakes, or pits lined with stone. The exact location was known only to a select few, and with their deaths, the secret passed into legend. What makes the tale compelling is that Spanish records confirm that much of Atahualpa's ransom never reached Cajamarca, leaving a real question of where those riches went. Over the centuries, explorers and fortune seekers have risked their lives searching for gold. One of the most famous attempts came in the 16th century, when Valverde, a Spanish priest who had lived among the Incas, was said to have learned the location of the treasure. Accounts claim that he returned to Spain wealthy and passed down a map that described the hiding place in the Langanetes. This map, known as the Valverde manuscript, became one of the most sought-after documents in treasure hunting history, though its vague descriptions of mountains and rivers have confounded everyone who has tried to follow it. Rumours and lingering scraps of Valverde's chronicle continued to entice adventurers into the mountains, even generations later. In the 19th century, a man named Barth Blake claimed to have found evidence of the treasure while searching in the Langanetes. According to letters he sent, he saw piles of gold ornaments, silver bars, and statues stored inside a hidden cavern, though he could not carry much out. Blake disappeared mysteriously before he could return, and neither he nor the cave was ever seen again. His writings, however, reignited the belief that the gold was real and still waiting. The conditions in the Langanetes made every expedition perilous. Constant rains turned paths into rivers of mud, and thick forests swallowed landmarks, leaving searchers disoriented. Many expeditions ended with starvation, illness, or abandonment. Yet the allure of the treasure was so strong that new groups continued to press forward. Some returned with tales of stone walls or carved steps in remote valleys, suggesting ancient constructions designed to conceal or guard something important. Others brought back little more than stories of hardship and loss. In the 20th century, modern explorers with better equipment tried to uncover the truth. Metal detectors, aerial surveys, and even helicopters were used to probe the mountains. Still, no treasure was ever confirmed. In 1982, an expedition claimed to find tunnels and structures that hinted at Inca activity, but again, no gold appeared. Each supposed discovery seemed to vanish into the mist of the mountains, leaving behind only fragments of speculation. The Langanetes had a way of swallowing not just men but their stories, ensuring the mystery remained intact. Local legends added to the intrigue. People in the surrounding regions told stories of lakes where the Incas had thrown vast quantities of treasure to keep it out of Spanish hands, with Lake Yambo and Lake Langanati often named as possible hiding places. Divers and explorers attempted to search these waters, but the depths were dark and dangerous, and no clear evidence was recovered. To the communities that lived near the mountains, the lost treasure was more than a legend. It was a reminder of betrayal and resistance, a symbol of wealth deliberately denied to the conquerors. The enduring question is whether the treasure truly still lies hidden in the Langanetes, or whether it was scattered, melted, or lost forever in the centuries that followed. Skeptics argue that stories of the hoard grew with each retelling, inflating what may have been a smaller cache of valuables into a mythical fortune. Yet the absence of records for the missing portion of Atahualpa's ransom keeps the possibility alive, because somewhere those riches must have gone. The mountains, untouched in many places, could still conceal what countless expeditions failed to uncover. What sets this legend apart from many others is the combination of confirmed history and enduring mystery. Atahualpa's ransom was real. The betrayal of his captors is well documented, and the missing treasure is not just a story invented after the fact. For that reason, the lost Inca gold of the Langanetes continues to inspire fascination. It represents not only immense wealth, but also the clash of two worlds, the desperation of an empire trying to survive, and the cruelty of conquest that left its final secret buried in the mist. Even now, with modern technology capable of exploring places that once defeated entire armies, the mountains keep their silence. The Langanetes stretch out with endless ridges and valleys, each one a potential hiding place for the lost ransom of an emperor. Whether the gold lies sealed within a cave resting at the bottom of a hidden lake, or was destroyed long ago, no one has been able to give a final answer. The mystery remains suspended in the highlands of Ecuador, a legend of betrayal, wealth, and secrecy that still waits for resolution. The Confederate gold. When the American Civil War drew to a bloody close in the spring of 1865, the Confederate government was collapsing, its armies defeated, and its leaders fleeing from advancing Union forces. In the chaos of those final weeks, one question began to stir whispers among soldiers, civilians, and historians alike. What became of the Confederate treasury, a collection of gold, silver, and valuable coins that was meant to keep the government functioning even as the South crumbled? The mystery has lingered for over a century, with stories of trains, wagons, and hidden caches sparking endless speculation about the treasure's fate. As Richmond, Virginia, the Confederate capital, fell on April 2, 1865, government officials scrambled to gather what remained of the treasury. Accounts vary, but contemporary records mention hundreds of thousands of dollars in gold, silver, and paper currency being loaded onto trains alongside important documents and personal possessions of fleeing leaders. President Jefferson Davis himself was part of this desperate retreat, travelling southward with his cabinet, hoping to escape capture and perhaps continue the fight from safer ground. Guarded heavily at first, the treasury was believed to have followed Davis as far as Georgia. Reports suggest that part of the treasure was used along the way to pay soldiers and cover the costs of flight, but much of it vanished under circumstances that have never been fully explained. One of the most enduring stories claims that wagons laden with gold and silver left Georgia under the cover of darkness, bound for an unknown hiding place. Others maintain that Confederate officers buried the treasure when they realized capture was inevitable, preferring to conceal it rather than see it fall into Union hands. The lack of reliable documentation has left room for every theory, and over time the story has become one of the South's greatest legends. In May 1865, Jefferson Davis was captured in Irwinville, Georgia, though no significant portion of the treasury was with him. This fueled the belief that somewhere along the route from Richmond southward, vast sums had been diverted, hidden, or stolen. Witnesses claimed to have seen wagons travelling into forests or mountains, while others described armed escorts disappearing into the night. Still, no official recovery followed, and Union forces never produced evidence that they had seized the hoard in its entirety. The mystery deepened as fragments of treasure occasionally surfaced, feeding the idea that the bulk remained hidden. For generations, hunters of treasure have chased the claimed trail of Confederate gold throughout Virginia, the Carolinas, and Georgia. Some believe it was hidden in small caches, scattered to avoid detection, while others insist it was buried intact in a single location. Rumours place it in remote swamps, mountain caves, or beneath unmarked fields. In Lincoln County, Georgia, stories emerged of locals stumbling upon gold coins in the decades after the war, as if pieces of the missing fortune had been quietly unearthed. Yet no discovery has ever matched the scale of the original treasury. Legends also tied the treasure to secret Confederate organizations that formed after the war, such as the Knights of the Golden Circle. These groups were rumored to have hidden and protected wealth in hopes of financing a resurgence of Southern power. Although historians debate the accuracy of these claims, they added another layer to the legend, suggesting that the missing gold was not simply lost but deliberately concealed for a cause that never rose again. Even now, whispers of buried hoards connected to these groups appear in stories across the American South. One of the few concrete attempts to trace the treasury came in the early 20th century, when researchers examined old records and testimonies of those who had travelled with Jefferson Davis. Some concluded that the treasure had simply been spent, stolen, or melted down, leaving nothing behind. Others argued that sudden disappearances of officers or soldiers hinted at secret dealings and concealed riches. The difficulty lies in the sheer chaos of the Confederacy's final weeks, when armies were disbanding, loyalties were fractured, and order gave way to desperation. In that environment, money could vanish easily, whether by theft, concealment, or necessity. Despite skepticism, the story of the Confederate gold refuses to fade. Modern treasure hunters, armed with ground-penetrating radar and historical maps, still search sites along the suspected routes. In recent years, some excavations in Georgia and Alabama have stirred local excitement, though none have yielded the vast fortune that legends describe. Each new rumour, each uncovered coin renews belief that somewhere, perhaps beneath layers of soil or hidden in the ruins of an old homestead, the remnants of the Confederate treasury remain. What keeps this mystery alive is not only the possibility of hidden wealth, but the way it captures the turmoil of a nation in collapse. The lost gold represents both the desperation of a government on the run and the secrecy of men who knew that their cause was finished, yet still clung to its last symbols of power. Whether the treasure lies in forgotten ground, or whether it was quietly divided and spent long ago, its fate remains unanswered. The silence of history has left space for speculation, and as long as no final discovery is made, the Confederate gold will remain one of America's most enduring legends of loss and secrecy. The Flor de la Mar. At the start of the 16th century, Portugal was at its strongest, its ships shaping the trade networks that bridged Europe and Asia. Among these vessels was the Flor de la Mar, or Flower of the Sea, a massive carrack launched in 1502 and considered one of the largest and most impressive ships of its time. At over 400 tons, she was built to carry heavy loads of cargo across long voyages, yet her size made her difficult to handle, and sailors who knew her well often considered her unstable. Despite this flaw, she was chosen for one of the most important missions in the Portuguese Empire, and it was during that mission that she carried what is believed to be one of the richest treasures ever lost at sea. The fateful voyage began after the conquest of Malacca in 1511, a port city in modern-day Malaysia that controlled trade through the Straits of Malacca, one of the busiest and most profitable waterways in the world. Afonso de Albuquerque, the famed Portuguese admiral, led the campaign and captured immense amounts of wealth from the Sultan of Malacca. Contemporary accounts describe gold, jewels, coins and priceless objects of art being gathered as spoils, along with tribute meant for King Manuel of Portugal. To transport this treasure back to Lisbon, Albuquerque loaded it onto the Flor de la Mar, trusting the massive ship to carry the cargo despite her history of difficulty at sea. The journey should have been triumphant, a return home with riches that would further strengthen Portugal's dominance. Instead, disaster struck as the ship sailed northward along the coast of Sumatra. In November 1511, a powerful storm battered the Flor de la Mar, and her unstable design proved fatal. Caught in violent seas, the great ship broke apart on hidden reefs, and the treasure she carried slipped beneath the waves. Albuquerque himself survived, clinging to wreckage and eventually making it back to safety, but the cargo was lost. No records suggest that any significant portion of it was ever recovered, and the sea claimed what may have been billions of dollars in wealth by modern estimates. The allure of the Flor de la Mar lies not only in the immense worth of its treasure, but also in how its disappearance was remembered through history. Portuguese records from the time speak openly of the ship's sinking and the treasure's disappearance, leaving little doubt that such a fortune was indeed aboard. Albuquerque expressed deep regret that he had chosen that particular vessel, noting her long history of being difficult to control, yet the decision had already sealed the fate of one of the greatest prizes in the Empire's history. For centuries, the wreck of the Flor de la Mar has been one of the most sought-after wrecks in the world. The Straits of Malacca, however, are treacherous waters, with shifting sands, strong currents, and countless other wrecks scattered across the seabed. Finding a single 16th century ship amid such conditions is a monumental task, and many expeditions have ended without success. Salvagers, divers, and governments have all expressed interest, but the location of the wreck remains uncertain. Some believe the treasure is buried beneath layers of silt and coral, while others argue that storms and shifting currents may have scattered it beyond recognition. The legends that grew around the lost treasure only increased its allure. Stories circulated of golden statues, chests filled with diamonds, and artifacts looted from Malacca's royal court lying untouched beneath the waves. Historians note that the cargo included gifts intended for the Portuguese crown, making it not just a fortune in monetary terms, but a collection of priceless cultural objects. Each generation of searchers has imagined what it might mean to recover such a hoard, but the sea has kept its silence. Attempts to locate the wreck intensified during the 20th century, with modern technology offering new possibilities. Sonar mapping, magnetometers, and underwater archaeology promised better chances of success, yet the straits continued to frustrate explorers. The waters are busy with shipping traffic, dangerous to navigate and filled with hazards for divers. Even when promising sites were found, excavations often turned up the remains of other vessels rather than the Flor de la Mar. The absence of solid evidence has left many to wonder whether the wreck is simply beyond reach. In spite of the challenges, the ship still stands at the heart of one of maritime history's most enduring enigmas. Governments in the region have expressed concerns over salvage rights, as the treasure, if found, would have immense historical and cultural value. Malaysia and Indonesia both claim connections to the wreck's location, and Portugal itself maintains that the treasure is part of its national heritage. The legal disputes only add another layer to the story, reminding us that even if the treasure were discovered, questions of ownership would make its recovery anything but simple. The ship's lasting fascination lies in the tension between certainty and speculation. Unlike many tales of lost treasure, this story is grounded in solid history, with detailed records of the ship, the conquest of Malacca, and the storm that sent it to the bottom. The missing fortune is not legend but reality, a documented hoard that has eluded discovery for more than 500 years. That absence of resolution keeps the mystery alive, drawing divers and dreamers to the Straits of Malacca in hopes of solving one of the ocean's greatest puzzles. Though present-day salvage companies probe the ocean floor, the elusive Flor de la Mar remains hidden from discovery. Whether it lies buried deep beneath silt, broken beyond recognition, or still intact in some forgotten corner of the seabed, no one can say for certain. What is clear is that the sea has guarded its secret well, and until someone finally locates the wreck, the treasure of the Flor de la Mar will remain one of the most coveted and unattainable fortunes in history. The Oak Island Mystery. Off the coast of Nova Scotia, in a place where fog drifts across the sea and the shoreline looks quiet and ordinary, lies Oak Island, a small patch of land that has drawn the attention of treasure hunters for over 2 centuries. The story begins in 1795, when a young man named Daniel McGuinness explored the island and noticed a curious depression in the ground, the kind of feature that looked unnatural, as if someone long ago had dug and covered something. Together with 2 friends, he started to dig, and what they found set in motion one of the most enduring mysteries in North America. As the men dug deeper into the soil, they discovered layers of wooden planks placed at regular intervals, as if deliberately buried to protect or conceal something below. Every 10 feet they found another wooden platform, and this pattern continued until the dig became too dangerous for them to continue. Word spread quickly, and others came to the island, certain that the site, which would become known as the Money Pit, held a treasure buried long ago, perhaps by pirates or even secret societies. From that moment forward, countless attempts were made to uncover the pit's secret, but each attempt ended with frustration, danger, or tragedy. The early expeditions in the 19th century gave the pit its reputation for being cursed. Workers reported that as they dug deeper, the hole suddenly filled with water, flooding everything and making it impossible to continue. Some believed this was no accident but part of a complex trap system designed to protect the treasure. By the 1840s, companies had invested large sums of money to drain the pit, only to discover that channels connected it to the sea. Every effort to bail out the water failed, and the diggers could only conclude that whoever had built this construction centuries earlier had gone to great lengths to ensure the treasure would not be easily taken. Different explanations have been suggested over the years about what truly lies below. Some claimed it was the lost treasure of the infamous pirate Captain Kidd, hidden away in the late 17th century. Others suggested it might be the work of the French or the British, storing riches from war. More imaginative ideas proposed that the Knights Templar had crossed the Atlantic with their sacred relics and buried them in Oak Island soil, leaving behind a labyrinth to guard them forever. Without proof, each theory fueled more speculation, and the legend only grew stronger with every failed attempt to solve the mystery. The danger of the site became all too real as accidents and deaths marked the search. In 1861, a boiler exploded during one excavation, killing a worker. Later tragedies added to the island's dark reputation, with stories of 6 men losing their lives in total during different digs. Superstitions arose, claiming that 7 people must die before the treasure would finally be revealed, and this idea gave the legend an eerie and unsettling aura. Even so, the lure of treasure was too strong, and new expeditions kept arriving, equipped with the latest technology of their time, hoping to succeed where others had failed. A particularly intriguing find occurred in 1897, when searchers reported drilling into the pit and retrieving fragments of a gold chain, pieces of parchment, and traces of metal. These small finds suggested that something valuable was indeed buried below, though nothing more was recovered. In later years, stone carvings and mysterious symbols were said to have been unearthed, including a famous inscribed stone allegedly found at a depth of 90 feet. According to reports, it bore strange markings, interpreted by some as a warning that immense treasure lay below, but would be lost if disturbed. Whether authentic or not, the stone only deepened the sense of mystery. Time and again, during the 20th century, explorers tried to overcome the money pit, only to be thwarted by stubborn natural and engineering barriers. Flood tunnels thwarted pumps and drilling rigs, cave-ins ruined progress, and the sheer expense of each attempt bankrupted many investors. Even the celebrated Franklin Delano Roosevelt, long before he became President of the United States, was once involved in an Oak Island expedition, and his interest in the mystery lasted his entire life. Each setback seemed to confirm that the pit was designed to resist human interference, keeping whatever lay beneath hidden indefinitely. In recent decades, Oak Island has become even more famous thanks to renewed interest and television coverage, especially through the efforts of Rick and Marty Legina, modern treasure hunters who have spent years and millions of dollars investigating the island. Their work has involved state-of-the-art drilling, excavation and analysis, uncovering artifacts such as coins, old tools and traces of metal deep underground. Yet the ultimate treasure has still not been brought to light, and the central question remains as mysterious as ever. Is there truly a vast hoard buried beneath the money pit? Or is Oak Island a monumental example of human imagination and persistence chasing shadows? Oak Island captures imaginations because it holds both the promise of treasure and the depth of history, stories, and stubborn perseverance. Generations of searchers have poured their energy and lives into the island, leaving behind a trail of discoveries, tragedies, and unsolved puzzles. The combination of partial evidence, unexplained engineering, and the human need to believe in hidden riches ensures that Oak Island continues to hold its grip on the imagination. In the present day, while technology digs and peers further underground, Oak Island's long-guarded secret endures. Perhaps the treasure lies far beneath, untouched for centuries, or perhaps the pit is nothing more than a brilliantly constructed decoy that has tricked generations. Whatever the truth may be, the island has already claimed its place in history as one of the greatest and most enduring treasure mysteries of all time. The Nazi gold train. When the final months of the Second World War brought chaos to Europe, whispers began to spread about a German train loaded with unimaginable riches, disappearing somewhere in the mountains of Poland. The story claimed that in 1945, as the Red Army advanced westward, the Nazis scrambled to move their stolen wealth, gold, jewels and priceless works of art, out of cities and into safer locations. One particular train was said to have left the city of Breslau, now Wrocław, bound for an unknown hiding place, only to vanish without a trace. As Soviet forces closed in, the Nazis were desperate to safeguard what they had looted from across the continent, and trains were often used to transport valuables quickly and under heavy guard. According to accounts that emerged years later, the fabled gold train was hidden somewhere near the city of Walbrzych in Lower Silesia, an area filled with mountains, forests, and an extensive system of tunnels dug by the Germans during the war. These tunnels, part of a vast project known as Riese, were constructed in secret and could easily have served as storage for a treasure meant to be recovered after the conflict ended. The earliest versions of the legend suggested that the train carried hundreds of tons of gold, as well as paintings, sculptures, and other treasures seized from occupied countries and Jewish families. It was also believed to have included advanced weapons and sensitive documents that the Nazis did not want falling into Allied hands. Though there was never official confirmation, the idea of a train sealed inside a tunnel and forgotten in the chaos of defeat took on a life of its own, drawing treasure seekers and historians alike. For decades after the war, locals in Poland spoke of hidden doors in the mountains, strange explosions, and abandoned railway lines leading to nowhere. Some claimed to have seen German soldiers guarding an area near Faberge in the final days of the conflict, while others whispered of executions meant to silence anyone who knew the truth. The mix of rumour, fear, and fragments of fact kept the story alive, even as official records offered no clear evidence. Governments largely dismissed the legend, yet the absence of proof did little to dim the fascination. Interest in the Nazi gold train flared brightly in 2015 when two men, Piotr Koper and Andreas Richter, announced they had discovered evidence of the hidden train using ground-penetrating radar. They claimed their scans revealed the outline of a massive train buried deep beneath the earth near Faberge. The Polish government quickly took notice, sending military experts to investigate the site. Media from around the world descended on the town, reviving an old story into a modern sensation and sparking a frenzy of speculation about what might lie underground. The excitement grew as officials confirmed that something unusual did appear on the scans, though whether it was truly a train remained uncertain. The Polish Culture Ministry publicly stated there was a 99% probability of a discovery, raising hopes that the legendary treasure was finally within reach. Locals prepared for an influx of tourists, while teams of experts debated how best to dig without risking collapse or damage. For a brief moment, the world's eyes turned to a quiet corner of Poland, waiting to see if history's most elusive train would finally emerge. However, when excavations began, the mystery proved more stubborn than anticipated. The dig uncovered no train, no gold, and no hidden Nazi vault, only soil and rock. Disappointment spread quickly, though some argued that the search had been too shallow or not in the precise location. Others believed that, even if a train had once been there, it had long since been removed or destroyed. What was left behind was not treasure, but an enduring puzzle that refused to be solved. Despite the failed excavation, the legend of the Nazi gold train did not fade away. New theories suggested the train might still be sealed deeper within the mountain tunnels, waiting beyond the reach of current technology. Some proposed that the Nazis had engineered elaborate traps, flooding chambers or sealing entrances with explosives, making recovery nearly impossible. The secrecy of the Riesa project, much of which remains unexplored, only added weight to the idea that something valuable could still lie hidden underground. The lasting enigma of the gold train reflects both the staggering wealth plundered in the war and how legends flourish where history is incomplete. The Nazis did hide treasure, and some of it has been recovered over the years in various caches across Europe, which makes the possibility of a lost train not entirely unbelievable. Each small discovery of stolen art or gold bars found elsewhere keeps the story alive, fueling the hope that a larger prize still waits in the Polish mountains. Still, the hunt endures, with explorers believing that in time the truth will be exposed, revealing either a train bursting with gold or a legend that has outlived the war itself. What remains certain is that the tale of the Nazi gold train has become part of modern folklore, a story where fact and imagination blur, and where the promise of hidden riches continues to draw those willing to chase shadows through tunnels, forests, and history itself. The Beale ciphers treasure. The first years of the 1800s brought Thomas J. Beale to Lynchburg, Virginia, holding close a secret that would haunt history for centuries. The tale goes that Beale and a group of companions had ventured west, possibly into New Mexico, where they stumbled upon a rich deposit of gold and silver. After mining a fortune, they transported the treasure back east and hid it in a secure spot somewhere in Bedford County. To safeguard the location and details, Beale created 3 separate ciphers, each holding part of the key to the mystery, before vanishing without a trace. Not long after, in 1822, Beale reportedly entrusted a locked iron box to an innkeeper named Robert Morris, instructing him to keep it safe until his return. Beale promised that inside were papers of great importance, which would be explained in a letter sent later. That letter did eventually arrive, but Beale never came back, and Morris, after waiting years in vain, finally opened the box. Within, he discovered the 3 coded messages, each written with numbers instead of words, a puzzle that seemed unbreakable without a proper key. One of these ciphers was eventually solved, and it revealed an astonishing claim. The message described a cache hidden in the Virginia countryside containing thousands of pounds of gold, silver, and precious jewels, a hoard so vast it would be worth tens of millions in today's money. The other two ciphers supposedly contained instructions on the exact location of the treasure and a list of the men involved and their families, but no one has ever succeeded in fully unlocking them. As word of the papers spread, treasure hunters, scholars, and cryptographers all tried their hands at cracking the code. The solved message had been deciphered by using the United States Declaration of Independence as the key, with each number in the cipher referring to a word in the document. Yet this method did not work for the other two, leading to endless debates over whether the story was genuine or a clever hoax. Still, the promise of unimaginable wealth buried somewhere in Virginia drew searchers by the thousands. Throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, expeditions combed the hills and valleys of Bedford County, armed with shovels, maps, and sheer determination. Many locals spoke of strangers digging holes in the middle of the night, convinced they were only inches away from unlocking Beale's secret. The area around Montvale in particular became a hotspot for speculation, as it was believed the treasure might have been buried beneath stone mounds or near old landmarks that no longer exist. Some hunters claimed to have found strange marks carved into rocks or trees, though nothing ever led to the fortune itself. A pamphlet titled The Beale Papers, published in Lynchburg in 1885, brought the mystery to prominence, allegedly recording Morris's story as later relayed to a confidant. The pamphlet included the three ciphers, sparking waves of new attempts to decode them. While many readers were enthralled, others suspected the entire tale might have been fabricated as a way to sell copies of the booklet. Skeptics argued that no record of Thomas J. Beale or his companions could be found, and that the writing style of the pamphlet suggested invention rather than fact. Doubts aside, the Beale ciphers remain firmly lodged in legend. Cryptographers from around the world have tested countless methods, from using other historical documents to mathematical techniques, but no definitive breakthrough has come. The FBI during the 20th century even received letters about the treasure, though it never officially investigated the matter. Modern codebreakers armed with computers have joined the effort, but the two unsolved ciphers remain stubbornly silent. Its timeless appeal comes from offering both a touch of history and a puzzle that continues to entice. Bedford County's landscape, with its rolling hills, forests, and hidden caves, provides a believable setting for a hidden hoard. The connection to America's early years, along with the romance of secret codes and lost fortunes, ensures that each generation rediscovers the mystery. Even today, locals warn of amateur diggers trespassing on private land in the hope of striking gold. What remains certain is that the Beale treasure story has taken on a life of its own, becoming part of Virginia folklore and one of the most famous unsolved codes in history. Whether a real fortune lies buried beneath the earth, or whether the tale was the invention of a clever storyteller, the allure of the ciphers continues to spark the imagination. Each number on those weathered pages feels like a door waiting to be opened, and as long as they remain locked, the promise of hidden riches will keep dreamers searching the soil of Bedford County, chasing a mystery that refuses to surrender its truth. The San Miguel Galleon. At the height of Spanish influence in 1551, the San Miguel emerged, part of fleets that ferried the wealth of faraway colonies through treacherous oceans. The San Miguel was one of the earliest Manila galleons, built to sail the treacherous Pacific route between the Philippines and New Spain, bearing cargoes of silks, porcelain, spices, and gold. These voyages were perilous, with storms, piracy, and the sheer length of the journey always threatening disaster. Yet they were vital for the Spanish crown, linking Asia with the Americas and, through them, Europe. It was in 1551, only a few decades after the first galleons began crossing those waters, that the San Miguel set sail with a precious load said to be worth a fortune. Records describe its departure from Cebu, laden with silver and rich goods destined for Acapulco, a port that had quickly become the heart of the Pacific trade. Captained by Juan de Arellano, the vessel never completed its journey, vanishing in the violent seas of the Pacific before ever reaching Mexico. No wreckage was recovered, and no survivors were reported, leaving behind little but rumour and the whispers of unimaginable wealth lost to the ocean. Generations of sailors and merchants spoke of the galleon's disappearance with a mix of awe and sorrow, for the cargo aboard was said to have been enormous, possibly rivaling later shipments that defined the Manila trade. Historians have noted that while the San Miguel was not as well documented as later galleons, its place as one of the first to sail the route gave it a near legendary status. Its fate became part of the larger saga of Spain's efforts to connect its farthest territories, a reminder that for every treasure that reached Seville or Madrid, there were others swallowed by storms and reefs. The absence of concrete evidence allowed the tale of the San Miguel to drift into the realm of legend, with treasure hunters speculating about where its wreck might lie. Some suggested it went down near the Marianas, others believed it may have foundered closer to the Philippines, while a few imagined it had strayed far from course, perhaps nearing the coast of California before sinking. Without survivors to clarify its final hours, the possibilities were endless, and each theory only added to the mystery that grew around its name. Centuries later, as divers and explorers began probing the seabed for the remains of lost galleons, the San Miguel stood high among their targets. The lure of porcelain from China, worked silver, gold coins, and the personal belongings of wealthy passengers made the search more than an academic pursuit. It was a dream of riches hidden beneath coral and sand. Expeditions in the 20th and 21st centuries scoured regions of the Pacific once suspected of being its grave, yet the vastness of the ocean and the lack of a clear record made the effort daunting. What gives the San Miguel its particular allure is not only the possibility of treasure, but also the symbolic weight it carries. This vessel was among the pioneers of one of the most important trade routes in history, a path that for 250 years connected Asia and the Americas in a continuous exchange. To find the San Miguel would not merely be to uncover riches, but also to recover a piece of the earliest chapter of this maritime saga, a glimpse into the dangers faced by sailors who dared to link two worlds by sea. Stories of the lost galleons still stir the imagination in places touched by the Manila trade, from the Philippines to Mexico to Spain itself. Local legends occasionally mention sightings of ancient timbers or cargo washed ashore, though none have ever been tied definitively to the San Miguel. In Mexico, old families told tales of ancestors waiting for a shipment that never came, while in the Philippines, it was remembered as an early example of how the sea could claim even the strongest ships. These recollections keep alive the sense that its cargo may yet be resting beneath the waves, untouched for nearly 5 centuries. In the end, San Miguel's fate remains a question without an answer, part of the long list of treasures lost at sea during the Age of Empires. Whether lying in shallow waters hidden by reefs or in a deep trench beyond reach, its wreck has never revealed itself, though the possibility continues to drive both scholarship and adventure. As long as people dream of lost fortunes and the mysteries of the ocean, the San Miguel will endure as one of history's most tantalizing maritime enigmas, a ship whose story blends fact and legend into a single, enduring mystery. The treasure of the Knights Templar. The Knights Templar's story unfolds in the early 12th century, an era when Europe burned with the passion of the Crusades, and the Holy Land was seen as both a remote Eden and a theatre of war. Founded around 1119 in Jerusalem, the order was initially tasked with protecting pilgrims travelling to sacred sites, but it quickly grew into one of the wealthiest and most powerful organisations of medieval Europe. The Templars accumulated castles, lands, and a treasure so vast that rumours of its existence inspired fear and fascination alike, stretching across centuries and continents. During the height of their power, the Templars amassed wealth in silver, gold, and precious relics, including chalices, manuscripts, and supposedly even the Ark of the Covenant. Their extensive network of banking and trade allowed them to hold deposits for kings and nobles, making them almost untouchable in Europe. By 1307, however, envy and suspicion had caught up with them. King Philip IV of France, deeply indebted to the Templars, orchestrated their arrest on Friday, October 13th, accusing them of heresy and blasphemy and seizing their properties. Many historians believe that this sudden purge was as much about political power and debt as it was about religion. It is said that before their downfall, the Templars safeguarded their most treasured riches in hidden corners, lost to history. Some stories suggest that they transported vast amounts of gold and sacred artifacts to Scotland, Ireland, or even the remote French countryside. One of the most famous tales tells of a convoy disappearing from Paris, supposedly carrying the Templars' greatest wealth. Others claim that the treasure was hidden beneath underground chambers in Normandy or along the Loire Valley, carefully concealed behind intricate stonework, traps or coded inscriptions meant to mislead even the most determined seeker. Scotland's Rosslyn Chapel, built in the 15th century by the Sinclairs, grew central to the treasure legend, whispered to have Templar associations. The chapel's carvings, intricate symbols, and hidden chambers led many to believe that the Templar treasure or their secret knowledge had been preserved there. Treasure hunters and historians alike have searched the chapel for decades, fascinated by the possibility of uncovering gold, relics, or documents detailing lost history. Despite extensive exploration, the truth remains elusive, feeding the mystery even more. Stories of Templar gold are not limited to Europe. Some accounts claim that the treasure was secretly carried to Portugal or Spain, where loyal knights awaited the right moment to reveal it. In Portugal, the Order of Christ, which succeeded the Templars, is said to have safeguarded parts of the treasure, integrating it into the wealth that funded voyages of discovery during the 15th century. This connection links the Templar legend to the era of exploration, suggesting that some of the riches may have crossed the Atlantic long before the Spanish galleons sailed from the New World. The search for the treasure of the Knights Templar continued well into modern times, inspiring books, films, and countless expeditions. Some treasure hunters have used old maps, cryptic manuscripts, or coded inscriptions believed to have been left by the Templars themselves. Each clue, whether in a library archive or carved into a medieval church, seemed to promise revelation, yet the treasure's exact location remained just out of reach. The blend of fact, myth, and speculation created a story that grew taller with each generation, making the Templar treasure one of the most enduring legends of lost riches. The magnetism of the Templar stash captivates anyone longing to unearth history's obscured stories. Whether in underground vaults, hidden chests, or deep forests, the idea that gold, relics, or sacred manuscripts might still lie undisturbed drives both imagination and adventure. Researchers point out that some elements of the legend are likely exaggerated, yet the tantalizing possibility of discovery keeps the search alive. Historians and enthusiasts debate whether the treasure ever existed as described, or if it was purely symbolic, representing the power and wealth of an order that could not be destroyed entirely, even by kings. Ultimately, the Knights Templar treasure remains one of history's most mysterious and seductive legends. It is a story of devotion, betrayal, and wealth that vanished without a trace, leaving only tantalizing hints scattered across Europe. From hidden manuscripts to carved stones and secret tunnels, each fragment of evidence fuels the imagination, suggesting that some part of the treasure may still exist, waiting to be found by those daring enough to follow the centuries-old trail. The legend endures, a reminder of an order that once held immense power and wealth, and of a secret that the world continues to seek but may never fully uncover. The Lost Dutchman's Mine. In Arizona's sun-baked deserts, the legend of the Lost Dutchman's Mine takes shape. As the Superstition Mountains loom like jagged fangs, their rocky faces guarding secrets that have captivated hunters of treasure for more than a century. Jacob Waltz, a German immigrant known as the Dutchman despite his heritage, is said to have discovered a rich vein of gold in the 1870s, though he never revealed its location. Locals whispered that his secret was so well guarded that even after he died in 1891, no one could trace the mine, leaving a trail of mystery, greed, and danger that persists to this day. Waltz's discovery is commonly told starting with his arrival in Arizona at the height of the gold rush. When prospectors swarmed the land in search of riches, he reportedly mined gold in secrecy, taking only what he needed while carefully marking paths and hiding clues in the harsh landscape. Some accounts suggest that he shared small amounts of gold with close friends, yet the exact location of the mine remained locked in his mind. Over time, tales spread of the immense wealth hidden among the canyons, drawing adventurers and fortune seekers who braved the unforgiving desert terrain. Many expeditions were launched during the early 20th century, fueled by rumours and partially remembered stories. One of the most famous searches occurred in 1930, when a group of treasure hunters claimed to have followed Waltz's vague directions through rugged passes and dry riverbeds. They carried maps, pickaxes, and hope, but the mine remained elusive, hidden beneath the sun-beaten rocks and twisted desert paths. Over time, the legend grew, and with it, a pattern of disappearances, mysterious deaths, and inexplicable accidents that made the Superstition Mountains both feared and irresistible to those chasing the Dutchman's fortune. Local folklore adds layers of intrigue to the mine's history, painting Waltz as a cunning man who outsmarted both bandits and competitors. Some stories recount that he used natural landmarks, such as unique rock formations or unusual cacti, to mark his secret trail, while others claim he left behind coded messages in letters or coins given to trusted friends. In 1892, shortly after Waltz's death, a former neighbour allegedly described a gold-streaked cavern that hinted at the Dutchman's find, but the description was too vague to locate the mine, further cementing the idea that the secret was meant to vanish with him. Over the decades, numerous seekers attempted to uncover the mine using old journals, maps and hearsay. In 1933, a prospector named Adolf Ruth reportedly found a rich gold seam while following a tip from an old miner, yet he vanished shortly afterward, and his discoveries were never verified. The dangerous terrain of the Superstition Mountains, combined with sudden storms, venomous snakes and treacherous cliffs, added to the legend's allure, suggesting that the mine was guarded not only by secrecy, but by the unforgiving forces of nature itself. Some treasure hunters proposed that Waltz was not the first to discover gold in the region, pointing to Native American legends of mineral-rich caves hidden deep within the mountains. Apache stories speak of sacred sites and places of power, hinting that the Dutchman's mine might have been built upon older, long-forgotten paths. This connection between indigenous knowledge and European prospecting adds a layer of mystery, suggesting that the gold may have been hidden in locations considered forbidden or sacred, accessible only to those who could interpret the landscape with care and respect. In more recent times, the Lost Dutchman's mine has become a symbol of both obsession and perseverance, drawing adventurers from across the world who hope to unearth its riches. In 1975, a group of hikers claimed to have found gold fragments near Weaver's Needle, a striking rock formation often associated with Waltz's secret, though the mine itself remained undiscovered. Stories of near misses, cryptic maps, and unexpected encounters in the mountains continue to circulate, maintaining the sense that the mine exists somewhere beyond the reach of ordinary exploration, waiting for someone clever, brave, or lucky enough to find it. It persists as a story where history meets imagination, intertwining Jacob Waltz's life, the rugged charm of the Superstition Mountains, and the eternal longing for hidden wealth. From vanished miners to coded letters, the Dutchman's mine has inspired countless searches, books, and films, each iteration adding detail, drama, and intrigue. Though skeptics question whether the mine ever existed, the mountains themselves seem to guard their secrets with patience, leaving only tantalizing clues that spark the hope of discovery. In the end, the Lost Dutchman's mine remains one of America's most enduring mysteries, a story of ambition, danger, and the allure of gold that refuses to fade, as if the desert itself whispers the secret only to those willing to listen. The Treasure of San Jose. In the turbulent Caribbean seas during the height of the Spanish Empire, the story of the San Jose's treasure unfolds, as fleets of galleons carried gold, silver, and precious jewels to Spain, guarded against marauding pirates and privateers. On June 8, 1708, the San Jose, a heavily armed galleon commanded by Captain José Fernández de Santillan, sailed from Portobello in Panama laden with immense wealth, bound for Havana, before making the final leg of the journey to Spain. Its cargo included gold coins, silver bars, and countless pieces of jewellery, a fortune accumulated from the mines of Peru and Colombia. Yet, this wealth would never reach its destination, as the ship became the target of one of the most famous naval engagements of the era. A British fleet led by Admiral Charles Wager intercepted the San Jose near Barrow Island off the coast of Cartagena, sparking a fierce battle that would end with the Spanish galleon sinking in less than 10 minutes. Eyewitness accounts describe the chaos as cannon fire tore through the San Jose, while sailors and soldiers fought desperately to save both themselves and the treasure. Local lore suggests that much of the gold and silver sank to the seafloor, hidden beneath layers of sand and coral, while only a few survivors escaped to recount the disaster. This sudden and violent end transformed the galleon into a legend, its immense treasure becoming one of the most sought-after prizes in maritime history. Efforts to locate the wreck have spanned centuries, often driven by both fortune hunters and governments eager to claim a share of the legendary riches. In the 1970s, Colombian divers attempted to map the seabed around Barrow Island, discovering fragments of hull and cannonballs but failing to locate the main treasure. More systematic searches began in the early 21st century, using modern sonar technology and remotely operated vehicles to explore the murky depths where the San Jose had vanished. Despite these advances, the wreck remained elusive for decades, protected by strong currents, shifting sands, and the dense growth of underwater coral that seemed to guard the gold as if nature itself conspired to hide it. Historical records provide tantalizing hints about the treasure's size and composition, but the numbers often seem exaggerated. Some historians estimate that the galleon carried between 11 and 15 tons of gold and silver, along with priceless artifacts taken from indigenous civilizations during Spanish colonization. Letters sent from Panama at the time mentioned San Jose's vast wealth beyond measure, fueling both fascination and speculation for generations. Treasure hunters pored over maps and archives, looking for clues hidden in shipping logs, port records, and correspondence from Spanish officials. Yet each discovery only deepened the mystery, leaving the bulk of the cargo unaccounted for. Local fishermen have long contributed to the lore, telling stories of old anchors and coins found along the coast, sometimes mistaken for fragments of the San Jose. In 2015, a Colombian team officially announced the discovery of the wreck, located in waters off Cartagena at a depth of more than 600 meters, confirming suspicions held for centuries. The Colombian government declared the site a cultural and historical heritage, ensuring that any recovery would be handled carefully, balancing the desire for wealth with the need to preserve the historical significance of the ship. This announcement reignited global interest, drawing historians, divers, and adventurers eager to witness the relics of a sunken empire. As time passed, stories of the treasure deepened, telling of cursed coins and ghostly figures that never leave the galleon. Some stories claim that the Spanish crew buried secret caches on nearby islands before the ship sank, while others suggest that pirates attempted to claim the cargo but were foiled by storms or Spanish naval patrols. These legends add an air of romance and danger to the search, creating a narrative that blends historical fact with folklore, inspiring books, documentaries, and treasure hunting expeditions that continue to this day. The cultural and historical importance of the San Jose extends beyond its monetary value, reflecting the era of colonial exploitation, maritime warfare, and the global movement of wealth during the 17th and 18th centuries. Scholars study the ship to understand shipbuilding techniques, the organization of Spanish fleets, and the logistics of transporting treasure across the Atlantic. Artifacts recovered, including coins and cannonballs, offer insight into the daily lives of sailors and soldiers, the strategies of naval combat, and the economic networks that tied the Americas to Europe. In this way, the treasure represents both a literal fortune and a symbolic connection to a past marked by ambition, danger, and empire. Capturing imaginations even today, the saga of the San Jose mixes the excitement of discovery with echoes of the past. While the bulk of its gold and silver may remain lost to the depths, the galleon's legacy endures in the stories told by historians, divers, and locals along the Colombian coast. Each expedition, each sonar scan, and each recovered artifact reminds the world that the treasure of the San Jose is not merely a pile of gold, but a bridge to a moment in time when empires collided, fortunes were made and lost, and the sea held secrets that no map could fully reveal, keeping the mystery alive for anyone daring enough to seek it. The lost treasure of Victorio Peak. A sharp wind swept across the rugged New Mexico landscape, carrying with it the secrets of a mountain that had guarded a treasure for more than a century. Victorio Peak, a jagged silhouette against the desert sky, had long been whispered about in local towns as the hiding place of unimaginable riches. Stories claimed that gold, silver, and priceless artifacts had been secreted away there by the mysterious outlaw Butch Cassidy, or perhaps by members of the Apache tribe who once roamed these lands. Each rumour added layers to a legend that refused to die, drawing treasure hunters who dreamed of striking it rich. Beneath the mountain's harsh cliffs, narrow canyons twisted like natural corridors, challenging every explorer who dared to enter. In 1937, a prospector named Milton Doc Noss claimed he had discovered the entrance to a hidden cavern, filled with gold bars and treasure beyond imagination. Noss reportedly spent years mapping tunnels and gathering supplies, determined to secure his fortune. Though he returned repeatedly with more equipment, he vanished from public life, and the location of his find became a tantalizing mystery that sparked decades of speculation. Men came from all over to scour Victorio Peak, their feverish quest captured in the local newspapers of the 1940s. They carried pickaxes, shovels, and hopes that the stories of Noss and others were true. Witnesses described hearing strange echoes in the mountains and spotting unmarked camps that seemed to appear overnight. Some believed the treasure was cursed, protected by the restless spirits of those who'd hidden it, while others insisted it was simply a matter of determination, patience, and luck. Claims of official participation only thickened the aura of secrecy around the mountain. During the late 1950s, the US Army reportedly conducted secret excavations, claiming to search for evidence of mineral deposits. Locals whispered that soldiers moved in and out under the cover of darkness, carrying strange equipment and refusing to answer questions. Some speculated that the government had discovered Noss's treasure long before anyone else, while others insisted the military found only empty tunnels, adding more mystery than answers. Betrayal and rivalry wove themselves into the lore, intensifying the treasure hunt. Noss himself reportedly invited partners into the search, only to have disputes end in violence and mistrust. In one account, a fellow prospector claimed he had seen Noss beaten by an unknown assailant, leaving behind clues that hinted at the treasure's location. These fragmented stories fueled the imagination of those who came later, each new adventurer piecing together maps and diary notes in the hope of finding the hidden gold. The landscape itself seemed to conspire against those who sought the treasure. Sweltering heat in the summer and icy winds in the winter made every expedition dangerous, while the jagged cliffs and sudden drop-offs tested even the most skilled climbers. Countless tunnels collapsed over the years, and some claimed that underground chambers had flooded, swallowing any evidence of treasure that might have existed. Yet every hazard only seemed to enhance the mountain's mystique, drawing those willing to risk life and limb for the promise of wealth. Eyewitness accounts added further colour to the legend. Some locals recalled seeing carts loaded with gold being hauled into secret caves late at night, while others claimed to have heard the clinking of metal deep underground. Hunters who had spent weeks searching in vain told stories of strange lights flickering inside the mountain, or eerie sounds that seemed to follow them through the canyons. Whether these were tricks of the imagination or signs of the treasure's presence, they became part of the lore surrounding Victorio Peak. In the decades that followed, numerous expeditions tried to uncover the hidden fortune, each contributing new theories about its exact location. Maps drawn from Noss's notes, interpretations of Apache legends, and even aerial surveys were used in the search, yet the mountain continued to guard its secret. Some believed the treasure had been removed long ago, perhaps by Noss himself, while others insisted it remained untouched, waiting for the one person clever or brave enough to claim it. History, mystery, and the human craving for adventure combined to keep the legend of Victorio Peak alive. Modern treasure hunters still trek into the mountains, carrying GPS devices and sophisticated tools, hoping to finally solve a puzzle that has confounded people for generations. Despite hundreds of years of speculation, the gold, silver, and artifacts said to lie within remain elusive, leaving the mountain as enigmatic and forbidding as it was when Milton Noss first dared to explore its depths. Rising from the desert even today, Victorio Peak serves as a quiet guardian, a symbol of the riches and risks that history keeps hidden. Hikers, historians, and fortune seekers alike are drawn to its slopes, captivated by stories of hidden riches and the thrill of the unknown. Whether the treasure is real or merely a legend, the mountain holds its secrets close, ensuring that Victorio Peak will continue to challenge those who believe in the possibility of extraordinary discovery. The Lost Faberge Eggs. Whispers of a royal fortune drifted through the corridors of history, centering on a series of exquisite Faberge eggs that vanished during the chaos of the Russian Revolution. Crafted by the legendary jeweller Peter Carl Faberge between 1885 and 1917, these jewelled eggs were masterpieces, each adorned with gold, enamel, and precious stones, often containing hidden surprises for the Russian imperial family. When the Bolsheviks seized power in 1917, the royal treasures were looted, sold, or smuggled out of Russia, and a number of the eggs disappeared without a trace, sparking decades of intrigue and speculation. Collectors and historians have long debated the fate of the lost eggs, piecing together records from imperial inventories and private correspondence. One particularly famous egg, known as the Rothschild egg, surfaced in private collections only in the 21st century, demonstrating how some treasures could remain hidden for decades. Names like Alexander Pallas, Nicholas II, and Dowager Empress Maria Feodorovna frequently appear in the records, creating a tapestry of historical context that sheds as much about people as it does about gold and gemstones. The intrigue deepened in the 1920s when reports suggested that several eggs had been smuggled out of Russia through convoluted channels involving diplomats, art dealers, and wealthy émigrés. Some were believed to have travelled through Paris and London before vanishing into private collections, while others reportedly ended up in remote estates in Europe and even the United States. Every clue was tantalising, but the trail was often cold, leaving only fragments of stories that treasure hunters and historians tried to follow. Records from the time describe eggs being exchanged quietly, sometimes even under coercion. Art dealers like Armand Hammer and private collectors such as Malcolm Forbes were rumoured to acquire pieces with murky provenance, adding layers of mystery to the already complex history. In one documented case, a Faberge egg once belonging to Empress Alexandra was recovered decades later from a forgotten storage vault in Geneva, showing how treasures could remain hidden in plain sight for generations. Rumours also suggested that some eggs were lost or destroyed during periods of war and revolution. As the Russian Empire collapsed, palaces and museums were looted, and the chaos of civil war made safeguarding priceless objects nearly impossible. Some eggs were melted down for their gold and gemstones, while others might have been hidden by loyal servants or sympathetic nobles, their whereabouts kept secret for fear of reprisals. The uncertainty fueled a fascination that continues to this day. Sightings of these lost treasures have been recorded by collectors and enthusiasts, though confirming their authenticity can be difficult. Photographs from the 1930s show eggs in private collections, but few of the pieces could be traced with certainty to the imperial family. Auction records occasionally reveal items that appear to match descriptions in old inventories, yet provenance remains difficult to prove. Experts frequently rely on subtle details, engraving, enamel work, and hidden mechanisms to confirm authenticity. More than their value, it is the artistry and historical legacy of the lost Faberge eggs that captivates collectors and historians alike. Each egg tells a story of imperial Russia, of celebrations and family traditions, and of the turbulent years that followed the fall of the monarchy. Treasure hunters and historians alike are drawn not just by wealth, but by the chance to uncover a piece of history frozen in gold and jewels, to hold in their hands a creation that once delighted an empress or marked a royal occasion. In attics, forgotten, dusty vaults, and even sealed time capsules, eggs are said to linger, hidden in plain mystery. Some claim that families who fled Russia kept eggs in secret for decades, reluctant to sell for fear of losing the connection to their past. Others suggest that eggs were scattered across continents, slipping into the hands of private collectors who never revealed their acquisitions. Every unconfirmed sighting adds to the mystique, keeping the legend alive. Modern technology has revived interest in the search for lost Faberge eggs, with digital archives, X-ray imaging, and detailed analysis helping to identify authentic pieces. Museums occasionally uncover eggs with unknown histories, prompting excitement in both the public and academic circles. Yet despite decades of research, numerous treasures remain unaccounted for, leaving the mystery unresolved and the egg's true locations a subject of endless speculation. The fascination with these hidden jewels continues to capture imaginations around the world. Collectors, historians, and even casual enthusiasts are captivated by the combination of beauty, craftsmanship, and mystery. The lost Faberge eggs represent a tangible link to a vanished world, and every discovery or credible lead revives the hope that one day more of these legendary treasures will be found. Until then, they remain symbols of a history both opulent and elusive, locked away in whispers, rumours, and the dreams of those who search for them. Even as time passes, the lost Faberge eggs endure as a puzzle, a challenge, and a reminder of the fragility of wealth and legacy. Their glittering surfaces conceal stories of imperial splendour, revolution and exile, inspiring generations to imagine what it would be like to uncover one of these treasures. The eggs may be gone from the palaces of St. Petersburg, but they live on in the minds of those who hope, one day, to bring history shimmering back into the light. The Yamashita treasure. The Philippine mountains echoed with rumours long before the war's close, suggesting that Yamashita himself had hidden vast caches of gold to aid Japan's military in Southeast Asia. Soldiers spoke in hushed tones about crates of gold bars, precious gems, and priceless artifacts loaded onto trucks and hidden in secret caves, while local villagers watched the convoys pass, unsure whether the rumours were fact or mere legend. The chaos of 1945 gave these stories life, as the retreating Japanese army left behind more questions than answers in their wake. In the dense forest near the Cordillera Mountains, old paths and mountain trails became the lifelines to secret stashes, paths only known to local guides and soldiers desperate to cover their tracks. Some of these trails were said to be booby-trapped, or marked with symbols that only the Japanese engineers could understand, designed to protect the treasure from prying eyes. Over time, the knowledge of these routes passed orally through families, creating a chain of folklore intertwined with fear, as anyone who stumbled across these hiding places reportedly vanished without a trace. A legend emerged in the town of Baguio, where residents recalled massive convoys arriving at dawn in late 1944, laden with gold and silver crates stamped with Japanese insignia. Witnesses remembered the gleam of coins spilling from overturned boxes during hurried unloading, an image etched into memory as a silent proof of wealth too large to transport entirely. Soldiers supposedly carried diaries and maps that detailed the treasure's final resting places, but most were lost or destroyed during the Allied push through Luzon, leaving only fragments of information to guide future treasure hunters. Almost immediately after the war, rumours of Yamashita's hidden treasures reached American intelligence, sparking investigations across the islands. The US Army Corps of Engineers conducted surveys, interrogated locals, and even searched riverbeds for evidence of sunken cargo, but the labyrinthine mountain terrain offered endless hiding spots. By the late 1940s, the story of the treasure had merged with sensational newspaper articles and dime store novels, each adding dramatic embellishments that made locating the gold a near impossible task. In Cavite and Mindoro, separate caches were said to have been concealed in tunnels carved under hills and reinforced with concrete, a testimony to the meticulous planning of Japanese forces who feared discovery by advancing Allied troops. Some survivors recounted hearing the clinking of metal as the last crates were lowered underground, while others claimed to see soldiers burning documents and sketches that mapped out the secret network of tunnels. These accounts varied wildly, yet each added weight to the belief that vast fortunes remained buried, waiting for the daring or the desperate. During the 1950s, Filipino treasure hunters began organizing expeditions, often armed with little more than picks, shovels, and crude maps derived from second-hand stories. In the Sierra Madre Mountains, adventurers reported partially collapsed tunnels, rusted tools, and empty crates, sparking both hope and frustration. Government officials occasionally attempted to regulate the searches, citing safety and land ownership concerns, but the allure of untold wealth kept the treasure alive in the public imagination. By the 1970s, interest in the Yamashita treasure reached international audiences, attracting fortune seekers from Japan, the United States, and Europe. The stories evolved into a blend of history and fantasy, with some claiming that gold bars had been hidden inside church crypts, rice paddies, or even under bridges washed away by seasonal floods. Every new lead generated expeditions, none of which yielded verified results, yet the treasure remained a symbol of wartime mystery, greed, and adventure in equal measure. Modern searches, employing metal detectors, ground-penetrating radar, and satellite imagery, have intensified over the last 3 decades, yet the mountains have kept their secrets. Local historians note that while Japanese records were meticulously kept during the occupation, many were lost in post-war chaos, making any modern claim to the treasure speculative at best. Nonetheless, legends continue to thrive in popular culture, inspiring documentaries, books, and online forums where enthusiasts compare notes and theories. Some experts argue that the Yamashita treasure may never have existed as a single hoard, suggesting instead that gold and artifacts were dispersed in multiple smaller caches, hidden hastily during the Japanese retreat. Others cling to eyewitness reports of heavily guarded storage areas in caves and tunnels, convinced that one day a daring adventurer will uncover the riches exactly as the legends describe. The debate fuels both hope and skepticism, leaving the mountains of the Philippines as both guardian and enigma. The thrill of what lies undiscovered continues to beckon adventurers into misty valleys and dense jungles with history and legend. Each step through the thick underbrush carries the echo of wartime urgency and the promise of discovery, whether it is empty crates, rusted tools, or a glint of gold hidden in the dark. The Yamashita treasure remains a story of patience, peril, and perseverance, a legacy of war that has become a timeless legend whispered across generations and etched into the imagination of all who dream of uncovering the lost wealth of the Pacific. The lost treasure of the Floridian pirate José Gaspar. José Gaspar, known to many as Gasparilla, first became legend along the Gulf Coast in the late 1800s, whispered by sailors and merchants about a pirate who ruled Florida's seas with terror in the early 1800s. According to local legend, Gaspar commanded a fleet of schooners and galleons, his main ship, the Floridablanca, rumoured to be laden with stolen gold, silver and jewels from Spanish galleons travelling from Havana to Europe. Maps and letters allegedly recovered from survivors hinted at hidden coves along Florida's western shoreline, where treasure chests filled with unimaginable wealth awaited the bold and daring. Along the shallow inlets near Tampa Bay, storytellers described secret coves accessible only during low tide, protected by jagged reefs and thick mangroves. Gaspar's crew, said to number in the hundreds, was rumoured to have hidden pieces of treasure in multiple locations, dispersing the loot to avoid detection by the Spanish Navy. Villagers recalled hearing the crash of cannon fire from offshore, mingled with the cries of captured sailors, a haunting memory that gave credence to tales of a pirate who was as cunning as he was cruel. In the 1820s, those who encountered Gaspar described him as fearsome yet charismatic, a man who commanded devotion through a delicate balance of charm and menace. He supposedly kept detailed logs of stolen riches, but most of these records vanished after his death or disappearance, leaving only fragmented stories passed down through families. These stories spoke of gold doubloons buried under palm trees, silver bars sunk in shallow coves, and crates of jewellery concealed beneath dunes, creating a labyrinth of potential treasure sites along Florida's coastline. The Gasparilla myth flourished in the early 1900s, especially in Tampa, as media coverage amplified fascination with the pirates' treasure. Some reports claimed that Spanish authorities, after chasing Gaspar along the Gulf Coast, had left behind clues that could lead to his treasure, but any attempts to follow these leads ended in frustration or danger. Locals warned that treacherous tides, venomous wildlife and unstable caves had claimed more would-be treasure hunters than success stories, solidifying Gasparilla's reputation as both legend and warning. In Charlotte Harbour and surrounding bays, divers and adventurers began organising expeditions in the 1930s, drawn by tales of sunken galleons and gold-laden skiffs. Some claimed to find fragments of old Spanish coins and rusted cannonballs, fueling speculation that the main treasure still rested somewhere beneath the mangrove shadows. Each discovery, however small, reignited hope and debate, as enthusiasts pored over historical maps, Spanish naval records, and oral traditions to pinpoint the elusive hoard. The final chapter of Gaspar's life, according to reports, wove extra layers of enigma into the treasure's story. Some said he perished in a violent storm near Gasparilla Island, while others insisted he escaped to the Caribbean with a portion of his wealth, leaving only misleading markers behind to confuse pursuers. In the decades that followed, families along the west coast swore that old weathered letters and diaries hinted at secret coves where chests were buried beneath thick layers of sand, guarded by traps designed to keep intruders away. During the mid-20th century, amateur historians and thrill-seekers combined forces to explore submerged wrecks near Estero Bay and Pine Island Sound, hoping to uncover the pirates' treasure before it disappeared entirely. Wooden chests, once thought to contain gold, often yielded only sand and coral, but occasional finds of coins, jewellery or cannon fragments reinforced the belief that Gaspar's hoard remained hidden. Researchers noted that Spanish and British naval logs sometimes mentioned attacks by a daring pirate fleet, lending some historical weight to what had otherwise seemed purely folkloric. Maps recovered from private collections suggested that Gaspar used complex codes and natural landmarks to mark the treasure's location, including large oak trees, unusual rock formations, and small tidal islands. Legend held that only those familiar with the local tides and the shifting coastline could hope to uncover the riches, as storms and erosion over nearly 2 centuries had altered many of the original hiding places. Despite these obstacles, the allure of unimaginable wealth and the romance of pirate adventure continued to draw both locals and outsiders into the bays and islands of western Florida. Treasure seekers speculated that the riches were never in one location, but broken into several secret caches, each indicated by symbols or passed down directions. Others maintained that Gaspar's cunning ensured the greatest treasure remained untouched, hidden in a final secret cove known only to him. The debate between skeptics and believers only heightened the myth, keeping the pirate's legend alive and encouraging new generations to explore Florida's waters and mangroves in search of elusive gold. During Tampa's Gasparilla parades and reenactments, even now, José Gaspar's memory inspires both festivity and speculation, weaving history and legend into a story that endures for more than 100 years. Each expedition into the inlets, lagoons, and barrier islands carries the echo of pirate cannon fire and the glimmer of buried gold, reminding all who search that some treasures are defined not just by wealth, but by the thrill of the chase and the enduring mystery of a pirate who vanished into legend. The treasure of King John's crown jewels. After a series of rebellions weakened King John's rule, rumours in the early 1300s suggested he had hidden pieces of his crown jewels, prompting chroniclers and villagers to imagine secret vaults and tunnels beneath the royal estates. Some accounts suggest that the king, fearing capture and the loss of his wealth, instructed only his closest advisors to conceal the treasures in places known to none but a handful of trusted guards, leaving clues that might only make sense to someone familiar with the royal family's routines and the sprawling architecture of the castles. Across the countryside, stories emerged of secret compartments behind stone walls in Windsor and other royal holdings, where gold crowns, bejeweled sceptres and ceremonial rings were said to be carefully stored to avoid looters. Local farmers and tradesmen in villages near the Thames recalled strange processions at night, with horse-drawn carts and men carrying crates into underground chambers, disappearing for hours before returning with empty hands. These whispered tales gave the impression of a kingdom protecting not only its wealth, but its legacy, leaving generations fascinated by the potential for hidden riches. By the 1400s, scholars and treasure hunters had begun cataloguing rumours of King John's jewels, though historical records remained scarce and often contradictory. Some letters suggested that silver and gold items were moved to remote abbeys or chapels to evade invaders, while other documents hinted at secret caches buried near riverbanks, protected by early warning traps or natural camouflage. Villagers recounted the faint glimmer of treasure glimpsed in torchlight during royal visits, though whether these were exaggerations or reality was impossible to determine after centuries of change and decay. Excavations in the 1800s near castles associated with King John occasionally turned up coins, fragments of jewellery, or ornate buttons, sparking new speculation that the main crown jewels might still exist hidden underground. Antiquarians documented partial findings, noting inscriptions and heraldic symbols that appeared to correspond with the monarch's known possessions, though no definitive discovery confirmed the presence of the full treasure. Each minor find rekindled interest, drawing adventurers from towns across England eager to uncover what had been lost to time. Behind tapestries, secret staircases, beneath royal chambers, false floors, and vaults reachable only through coded keys and intricate locks. Such were the clever methods spoken of in legend. Some historians posited that King John's advisors may have split the jewels into multiple locations, leaving each cache with its own set of cryptic instructions or markers. Villagers told of old carved stones near river crossings that supposedly pointed toward hidden caches, though erosion and centuries of farming had made the landmarks nearly impossible to recognize. Failed treasure hunts became legendary during the 19th and 20th centuries, with seekers confronting tunnel collapses, flooded spaces, or misleading hints placed to ward off explorers. One expedition in 1872 reported uncovering a partially buried chest containing gold coins marked with the royal seal, But beyond that, the search yielded only fragments and ruins. Even as methods improved, the treasure remained elusive, fueling both frustration and excitement among those who believed that King John's riches had been preserved in perfect secrecy. Some documents hinted that the jewels had been moved during the early 1200s to secret locations along the countryside of Hertfordshire and Northamptonshire, with cryptic references to old estates, oak groves, and hidden river fords. Folklore suggested that only descendants of those entrusted with the treasure could decipher the original directions, and that attempts by outsiders would lead only to confusion or danger. Families living near these old estates passed down stories of gold glinting in moonlight and strange symbols carved into stones, preserving hints that might still guide the determined seeker. Private collections in the 20th century revealed maps marked with faint lines and cryptic notes, thought to point to certain vaults, yet decoding them was almost impossible because centuries had altered the landscape. Archaeologists and amateur explorers compared these maps with old manuscripts, looking for patterns in the placement of castles, rivers, and villages that might reveal the hidden caches. Some argued that the treasure could no longer exist in its original form, having been moved or dispersed long ago, yet others insisted that King John's meticulous planning ensured some jewels survived untouched. Occasional modern digs have uncovered tiny treasures, jeweled buttons, gold rings, fragments of crowns, offering glimpses of the original hoard's splendor and sustaining hopes for a complete find. Even the smallest find fuels speculation about the possible locations of larger collections, inspiring both historical research and adventurous expeditions into castles, abbeys, and countryside estates. The allure of uncovering the treasures of an English king continues to captivate minds, blending history, legend, and the thrill of the chase into a story that spans centuries. Interest in the lost jewels of King John endures, captivating historians, treasure seekers, and the wider public alike, with films, books, and local tours investigating the possibility that some of the royal treasure remains hidden. Each discovery, real or imagined, reminds seekers that the treasure represents more than wealth. It is a connection to history, a test of cunning and patience, and a challenge that continues to inspire those daring enough to follow the faint trail left by a medieval king whose riches may yet wait silently beneath the soil of England. The Lost Romanov Treasure. With revolutions spreading across Russia in 1917, rumours circulated in St. Petersburg that the Romanov family had concealed vast treasures, leaving citizens and loyalists alike to ponder secret rooms and hidden compartments in palaces overtaken by Bolsheviks. Eyewitnesses later recounted seeing carts loaded with heavy crates moving through the Winter Palace at night, guarded by men who vanished into shadows, suggesting that someone had carefully planned to protect the treasures from confiscation or destruction during the chaos of the revolution. Scattered across the countryside, rumours described hidden caches in forests, underground cellars, and monasteries where priceless Faberge eggs, ceremonial crowns, and jewelled necklaces were allegedly stashed, often with handwritten notes indicating ownership and value. Locals in villages near Tsarskoye Selo claimed they occasionally glimpsed glittering objects in the glow of lanterns, though decades of change had erased clear evidence, leaving only fragments of memory and whispered legends to guide the curious or daring. In the years following the Romanovs' exile and execution in 1918, treasure hunters and scholars began piecing together accounts from servants, soldiers, and former officials who had witnessed the transportation of valuables, yet most leads ended in disappointment, with hidden rooms found empty or previously ransacked. Some diaries hinted at coded instructions known only to the royal family, possibly pointing to secret riverbanks, church crypts, or abandoned estates where items could be protected from looters or political upheaval. The 1930s saw an influx of adventurers and affluent collectors in Russia, seeking Romanov treasures with old maps and letters, though many landmarks had shifted through war and urban expansion. One team reportedly unearthed a buried chest near a river in the outskirts of Moscow, containing gold coins stamped with imperial insignias, yet the main collection, including the famous Faberge eggs, remained elusive, reinforcing the belief that the treasures had been divided and hidden in multiple locations. Beyond Russia's borders, the Romanovs are said to have secreted documents and treasures, hiding them with loyal families or tucked away in private European estates. Historians speculated that some jewels might have been secretly transported to Paris, London, or even Constantinople during the family's frantic escape plans, leaving a trail that could only be followed through careful study of shipping records, personal letters, and diaries of those loyal to the imperial household. Odd markings etched into walls, stones and trees around palaces and river crossings were noted by guides in the 1950s, suggesting hidden treasure might be nearby. Some believed that only descendants of palace guards or trusted aides could interpret these signs correctly, warning outsiders that misleading tracks and natural obstacles could easily deter even the most determined seekers. Despite decades passing, the allure of a lost royal hoard remained irresistible, drawing adventurers with dreams of uncovering the riches that had vanished amidst revolution and bloodshed. Fragments of ceremonial swords, necklaces and rings surfaced during 20th century probes, hinting at the opulence of the original Romanov hoard and suggesting that much was still hidden. Archival research combined with ground excavations sometimes produced promising leads, yet floods, erosion, and decades of neglect often concealed the caches beyond reach. Each minor discovery offered a glimpse into the opulence of the Romanov court and the meticulous care taken to preserve these treasures from looters. Some of the most valuable treasures, including Faberge eggs adorned with diamonds and imperial crowns, were said to be secreted away in monastery vaults or palace tunnels, deliberately kept from discovery, according to legend. Tales passed through generations spoke of the intricate planning involved, with codes, traps, and secret compartments, ensuring that only those with knowledge of the family's private methods could locate the treasures. Villagers often recalled tales from grandparents about seeing glowing lights in remote estates during the Revolution, further hinting at the careful concealment of objects of immense value. The majority of the Romanov treasure remains elusive, despite intensive searches by 21st century explorers, historians, and collectors, inviting ongoing speculation and daring expeditions. Some researchers argue that political upheaval, theft, and secret sales over the decades have dispersed the collection, while others insist that careful planning by the Romanovs means much of it still exists in hidden locations, untouched and waiting for rediscovery. In modern times, fascination with the Romanov treasure persists, not only among historians and hunters of fortune, but also through popular culture, giving rise to books, films, and documentaries blending legend and fact. The treasures represent more than gold and jewels. They embody the vanished world of an imperial family, the chaos of revolution, and the enduring human desire to uncover what was once thought lost forever. Each story of discovery, real or imagined, keeps alive the hope that one day some portion of the Romanovs' magnificent wealth will emerge from its long secret concealment. The lost treasure of Moctezuma. Among the Aztec people, stories circulated long before the Spaniards came, describing Montezuma's vast riches concealed in palaces, temples, and hidden chambers, glittering with gold, jade, turquoise, and precious feathers collected over years of conquest and tribute. When Hernan Cortés landed on the coast of Veracruz in 1519, tales of the emperor's wealth only grew, with scouts describing cities and temples brimming with riches that seemed almost impossible to imagine, inspiring dreams of fortune among the conquistadors. Along the paths leading to the capital, villagers whispered about secret caches buried beneath pyramids and in sacred groves, concealed with intricate rituals and guarded by trusted priests, ensuring that only those who knew the proper rites could approach without incurring spiritual wrath. Early reports from Spanish explorers mention offerings of gold, beads, and intricately carved idols that vanished from sight overnight, suggesting that the Aztecs had mastered the art of hiding their wealth from outsiders while keeping it protected for their rulers. During the siege of Tenochtitlan in 1521, chaos and fire swept through the city, and while many treasures were seized or melted down, eyewitnesses later claimed that Montezuma's most prized possessions had been spirited away, carried by loyal warriors into the surrounding forests and mountains. Some stories indicated that the loot included solid gold figurines, ornate jewellery inlaid with emeralds, and ceremonial headdresses covered in quetzal feathers, items so valuable that their disappearance became the subject of endless speculation. Explorers and treasure hunters in the decades that followed obscure maps, coded letters, and fragmented accounts that suggested hidden stashes in valleys, caves, and along rivers in what is now central Mexico, yet most attempts ended in failure or were thwarted by natural obstacles like sudden floods, rugged terrain, or shifting political boundaries. A few accounts describe entire caravans of silver and gold being lost in mountain passes, while others hint that certain caches were submerged in lakes or concealed in dry wells, leaving clues only to those brave or clever enough to decipher them. Stone-reinforced subterranean chambers beneath the Great Temple, defended by traps and spiritual symbols, were said to be Montezuma's plan to safeguard his riches in case the city fell. Spanish chroniclers noted that during moments of retreat, Aztec priests carried out clandestine ceremonies and disappeared into hidden corridors, leaving behind only empty temples while safeguarding objects that modern seekers have spent centuries trying to locate. Some academics suggest that treasures were strategically dispersed, not just in central Aztec regions, but also among far-flung villages and holy sites in Oaxaca and Puebla, with indigenous communities maintaining secrecy through oral histories long after the empire ended. In these regions, locals passed down coded songs and stories that hinted at rivers sparkling with gold dust or caves filled with gemstones, sometimes interpreted as warnings or invitations to only the worthy. Guided by whispers from local elders and tattered maps, bold explorers from Europe and North America journeyed into the Sierra Madre in the 19th and early 20th centuries, chasing the legendary gold of Montezuma said to be concealed during the Spanish conquest. Expeditions often found fragments of pottery, ceremonial tools, or small caches of silver, yet the grand treasure, said to rival the wealth of European kings, remained elusive, adding to the mystique and fueling countless new expeditions. Entire settlements were said to guard hidden tunnels to underground hoards, their entrances indicated by distinctive rocks or old ceiba trees, and some claimed enigmatic stone glyphs provided maps to the riches below. Each discovery was tantalizing yet incomplete, hinting at a larger network of concealment that required knowledge of Aztec history, geography, and ceremonial practices to decode. In the modern era, metal detectors, satellite imagery, and archaeological research have revealed partial hoards and remnants of ceremonial artifacts, yet scholars remain divided on how much of Montezuma's treasure actually survives and whether it was ever fully recovered by the Spanish. Museums contain only a fraction of what was once said to exist, with gold masks, jade figurines, and feathered relics offering glimpses of the empire's artistic and material wealth, while reminding historians that the majority of the treasure could still lie hidden. Montezuma's treasure still captivates adventurers, researchers, and narrators today, prompting books, documentaries, and journeys into Mexico in search of the fabled wealth. The Lost Hoard represents more than wealth. It embodies the history, culture, and spiritual life of an empire that fell under conquest, yet left behind mysteries that challenge modern explorers. Each new lead, whether discovered or imagined, sustains the hope that some portion of Montezuma's treasure might one day emerge from the shadows of centuries, waiting to reveal the grandeur of a lost world. The Lost Mines of King Solomon. Carrying through generations, whispers of immense wealth hidden beneath the sands of southern Israel and northern Saudi Arabia fueled imaginations and dreams of adventurers from all corners of the globe, while legend spoke of King Solomon's mines long before the first European explorers set foot on the deserts of Arabia. The earliest tales told of gold and jewels so abundant that even a small caravan could leave the mountains glinting in the sun for weeks, yet despite countless expeditions in the 18th and 19th centuries, no traveller ever returned with proof of the treasure's exact location. Maps drawn by eager explorers often contained more speculation than fact, with notes in margins claiming that rivers had shifted, caves had collapsed, or that local tribes had secreted the entrance to the richest chambers long ago. Amid the arid heat of the Negev desert, rumours persisted that King Solomon's wealth had been funneled through a series of underground passages, carved by master artisans in ancient times, where walls were inlaid with the gold dust and gemstones, and hidden chambers contained chests of pure silver, intricately engraved with symbols lost to history. By the late 1800s, European adventurers such as Captain Henry B. Trist and Colonel Richard Burton had attempted to trace these subterranean labyrinths, relying on local guides who spoke in riddles and legends, and yet, despite months of exploration, their journals noted only faint traces of ancient mining activity and occasional discarded tools, leaving the true extent of the riches a tantalizing mystery. Many believed Solomon's mines dwarfed today's mines, with hidden networks under mountains fed by flowing treasures of gold and gemstones from faraway territories. In 1885, an American prospector named Frank C. Baker claimed to have discovered an entrance marked by ancient inscriptions near the Wadi Rum region, but the shifting sands quickly swallowed the site, leaving behind only charred footprints and faint sketches of the carvings. The stories of Baker and others inspired newspapers in London and New York, each headline declaring that the lost mines of Solomon had finally been found. Yet as always, excitement faded into disappointment when no treasure appeared, and skepticism grew alongside legend. In certain valleys, locals maintained that the mines were protected by supernatural forces, curses placed by Solomon himself to deter greedy eyes, and the accounts of travellers returning with strange illnesses or sudden misfortune only reinforced these warnings. Some chroniclers reported hearing voices echoing through caves. Others swore that flickering lights and shadows would guide wanderers deeper into the labyrinth but never to treasure, as if the mines themselves were alive and defensive. These tales, passed from Bedouin tribes to explorers' notebooks, became as much a part of the myth as the gold and jewels themselves, and added layers of caution and fear that made many abandon their quests altogether. Technological progress in the early 20th century enabled mapping and rock drilling, yet the fabled veins of gold remained undetected despite sonar and crude geological studies. A few audacious expeditions claim to have found small caches of coins or artifacts bearing Hebrew inscriptions suggesting a link to Solomon's reign in the 10th century BCE, but these discoveries were often dismissed as remnants of minor operations rather than the legendary mines themselves. In 1911, an expedition led by Major William Fitzroy documented several tunnels near Petra, noting extraordinary rock formations that could have hidden riches, but ultimately the group returned empty-handed, fueling further speculation and reinforcing the enigma of what might lie beneath untouched stone. Though trade might explain Solomon's fortune more than hidden mines, the enduring tales of secret rooms filled with gold, sapphires and diamonds captured European and American imaginations, inspiring stories, movies, and expeditions into deserts, mountains, and subterranean caves across Africa. Researchers today analyze ancient texts and archaeological finds, such as remnants of ancient mining equipment and inscriptions in the Timna Valley, trying to distinguish legend from historical reality, but the true scale of Solomon's treasure remains elusive. Each theory adds new detail: gold transported from Ophir, vaults beneath Jerusalem, or mines extending into Ethiopia. But each remains unconfirmed, leaving the allure of discovery undiminished. Modern adventurers still chase the dream, equipped with satellites, drones, and metal detectors, scanning deserts and hidden valleys where sunlight barely touches the rocky ground, and yet the mines continue to guard their secrets. Expeditions in the 1990s claim to have located tunnels with unusual mineral deposits, hinting at gold, but attempts to excavate were stymied by safety concerns and local regulations, reminding all that even in an age of technology, nature and legend are powerful keepers of treasure. Despite centuries of searching, from camel caravans to helicopters, the lost mines of King Solomon remain a symbol of human ambition, the shimmering promise of wealth, and the enduring mystery that draws explorers to the deserts of the Middle East, where whispers of gold still glint beneath the sands. The Kruger Millions. The dry winds of the South African veld stirred the memories of a fortune that had vanished nearly a century ago, when President Paul Kruger of the Transvaal amassed wealth that was rumoured to be hidden from the advancing British forces during the Second Boer War. In 1900, as British troops encircled Pretoria, Kruger allegedly arranged for gold and other valuables to be secreted away in wagons, never to be seen again, leaving behind a trail of rumours that fueled treasure hunts for generations. Local farmers and soldiers told stories of carts buried into remote hills, while maps drawn hastily and then lost added layers of mystery that no historian could fully untangle. Into the night beneath the rolling hills and sparse acacia trees, whispers told of a convoy of ox-drawn wagons carrying not only Kruger's personal wealth, but also the national treasury of the Zuid-Afrikaanse Republiek. According to surviving letters from the time, the president feared that if the gold fell into British hands, the country's independence would be irrevocably lost, so meticulous plans were made to relocate it to secret caches in the northern provinces, particularly around Lydenburg and the Württemberg region. Explorers who tried to trace the route often encountered deceptive landmarks, disappearing trails, and local guides unwilling to reveal the exact sites, claiming ancestral promises to keep the treasure safe. Taking on almost mythic proportions, the legend of the Kruger millions in the decades that followed saw treasure hunters from Europe and America, each claiming to have deciphered clues left behind in old letters, diaries, or newspaper articles. One of the most persistent stories involved a map allegedly drawn by General Couste de la Rey in 1902, which depicted hidden tunnels beneath kopjes and dense bush. Yet every expedition attempting to follow it ended in frustration as the landscape shifted and markers faded over time. Tales of gold bars found by amateur diggers often turned out to be false alarms, further embedding the idea that the fortune was protected by luck, secrecy, or perhaps some unseen force. The small towns near Lydenburg and Pilgrim's Rest became gathering points for those chasing the elusive treasure, where local cafes displayed faded photographs of Kruger and his entourage, and elderly residents recounted stories of wagons laden with gold vanishing along dusty tracks. During the 1930s, an American adventurer named Thomas B. Harrison claimed to have uncovered a hidden cache near a dry riverbed outside Lydenburg, but the gold reportedly disappeared overnight, leaving him with only accounts of its discovery and renewed speculation among treasure seekers. Each story added new layers to the legend, intertwining fact and fiction so tightly that separating them became nearly impossible. Many researchers also point to the role of South African railways in the disappearance of the Kruger millions, noting that wagons carrying gold may have been transferred to trains under strict secrecy, only to vanish en route. Archival records from 1900 mentioned sudden rerouting of freight and unexplained delays, fueling speculation that some gold was moved to remote depots in Limpopo or Mpumalanga. Eyewitnesses later recalled seeing heavily guarded trains stopped overnight in isolated stations, suggesting that portions of the fortune were never buried but rather concealed in abandoned rail yards, lost as railway lines shifted or were dismantled in the decades that followed. Financial records from the Kruger era hint that some treasure may have been sent abroad or crafted into jewellery, casting doubt on the idea that the entire hoard was kept in South Africa. Additionally, historians have uncovered references to coded messages in newspapers and private correspondence, implying that clues to the treasure's location might have been deliberately scattered to mislead potential seekers. Dusty journals from former Boer fighters suggested that the treasure had been split into multiple locations to prevent total loss, making it even more difficult for anyone to retrieve the full haul. Some accounts mention that gold ingots were concealed under rocks in remote valleys, while other portions were said to have been buried near the banks of the Oliphants River, often marked with crude stone cairns that have since been disturbed by wildlife and human activity. The meticulous care in hiding the treasure suggests that Kruger and his associates feared betrayal as much as capture, leaving behind cryptic hints rather than clear directions, which inspired treasure hunters to rely on intuition and guesswork for decades. Yet even metal detectors and excavation teams failed to uncover anything substantial. By the mid-20th century, modern equipment allowed for more organised searches, reinforcing the belief that the Kruger millions were either gone or well protected. In 1963, a group of geologists and amateur historians attempted to locate rumoured tunnels in the Württemberg Mountains, noting peculiar rock formations and traces of wagon tracks, but no cache was ever recovered. Newspapers sensationalised each claim, fueling a cycle of hope and disappointment that continued to attract adventurers from around the globe, each eager to be the one to finally unearth the fabled fortune. Anyone who disturbed it without understanding its history would suffer misfortune. Local folklore also tells of warnings placed by the Boers, claiming the treasure was guarded by spirits of those who perished during the war. Some treasure hunters reported finding strange symbols carved into stones, unexplainable footprints, or even hearing faint voices near abandoned farms, which added an eerie atmosphere to the hunt and made many question whether the gold's absence was due to human intervention or some otherworldly protection. Over time, these stories became inseparable from the physical searches, turning the Kruger millions into a legend as much spiritual as material. Drawing adventurers with drones, GPS devices, and historical research, even today, expeditions continue, scanning hillsides, valleys, and abandoned homesteads for signs of the missing fortune. Each new attempt revives old rumours, and satellite imagery sometimes reveals unusual formations that inspire fresh theories about hiding places, yet no gold has ever emerged. The Kruger millions remain a testament to human curiosity, the consequences of war, and the enduring allure of treasure hidden in plain sight, preserved in memory, legend, and the restless imagination of those who dare to search the South African veld. The lost treasure of the San Miguel de Archangel. Once a proud vessel of the Spanish fleet, the San Miguel de Archangel carried barrels of silver, gold coins, and priceless jewels across its iron-reinforced decks, bound for Europe centuries ago. On a stormy night in November 1622, however, it vanished near the coral reefs off the coast of Florida, leaving behind only fragments of its rigging and tales whispered by fishermen who claimed to glimpse its shadowy masts beneath the waves. Sunlight glinted on scattered pieces of pottery and rusted cannonballs in shallow coves along the Florida Keys, where divers have long searched for the galleon's remains. Driven by journals from Spanish sailors describing secret compartments within the hold meant to safeguard the crown's wealth, they still found the exact location of the treasure elusive, buried beneath centuries of sand, coral, and hurricane debris. In St. Augustine, 17th century merchants and adventurers passed along tales of the ship's riches, describing in letters to Seville how Spanish galleons were struck by storms. They often noted that the San Miguel de Archangel was last seen under the command of Captain Juan de Leon, whose meticulous logs hinted at hidden caches of gold intended for the king, sparking both hope and envy among rival captains. Interwoven with historical records, local folklore tells of native tribes witnessing strange flares of light on the water at night. Some interpreted these as spirits guarding the treasure, while others claimed that survivors of the shipwreck had buried gold inland, marking its hiding place with carved symbols on cypress trees. Many of these markings were later lost to time and hurricanes, leaving only tantalizing clues. Spanish archivists in Havana and Seville preserved fragments of letters and manifests that recorded every chest and bar aboard the San Miguel. Many pages, however, were missing or scorched in fires, suggesting the documents may have been deliberately destroyed to keep the treasure secret. This led treasure hunters in the 18th and 19th centuries to pore over maps and charts, comparing coastlines then and now in hopes of tracing the ship's final resting place. Diver Robert Marks reignited interest in 1925 by uncovering small piles of silver coins near Matacumbe Key, leading many to speculate that the galleon had shattered during the hurricane and scattered its treasure across the reef. Yet no large hoard was ever found, and many historians began to question whether the ship's treasure had already been salvaged in secret by Spanish or pirate crews before modern exploration began. As early as the 1940s, local eyewitnesses began reporting glimpses of shining objects emerging from the sand during low tide. Others reported seeing fragments of chests embedded in reefs, though storms and shifting currents made recovery nearly impossible. Rumours of rival treasure hunters sabotaging each other in pursuit of the gold only added to the danger and secrecy surrounding the search. Since the 1980s, sonar mapping and submersible dives have used modern technology to reveal outlines of possible hull remains hidden beneath sand and coral. But these scans have never produced a verified treasure trove, and environmental conditions in the Keys, combined with shifting channels and storms, have turned each expedition into a gamble, with researchers needing both skill and luck to uncover even the smallest artifact. In addition to metal coins and jewellery, the ship's manifest mentioned religious relics, intricate silverware, and rare gemstones intended as royal gifts. This fueled legends that the galleon carried not just wealth, but items of immense cultural and historical value, some believed to have been recovered later by Spanish smugglers and secretly transported to Europe, leaving only traces of the original cargo for those seeking it today. Despite centuries of searching, stories of those who vanished while hunting the San Miguel's treasure persist. Some claim entire crews disappeared after striking tunnels in limestone caves suggested to hold hidden caches, while others describe phantom ships appearing in moonlight near offshore reefs, reinforcing the belief that the treasure is not just lost, but fiercely guarded by the sea itself. Maps and charts from the 1600s to the 1800s indicate shifts in underwater topography, meaning locations once considered promising for salvage may now lie under several feet of silt or in completely different positions, and treasure hunters must contend not only with nature's forces but with legal restrictions, as Florida's preservation laws protect shipwrecks, adding a layer of challenge to uncovering the centuries-old prize. Divided into smaller shipments over time, the San Miguel de Archangel's treasure could explain why so few artifacts surface. At the same time, divers occasionally find fragments of silver coins or decorative medallions in areas distant from the supposed wreck, suggesting partial recovery by crews familiar with the Key's reefs shortly after the sinking. Oral histories passed down by families in Key West and Isla Morada mention old sunken chests found near mangrove inlets, often disappearing mysteriously before they could be claimed, and these stories include names of early settlers who supposedly attempted to retrieve gold, only to abandon the search when illness, storms, or strange accidents befell them, reinforcing the air of mystery surrounding the galleon. Inspiring books, documentaries, and local festivals, the San Miguel de Archangel captivates historians, adventurers, and treasure hunters alike even today, as small relics occasionally turn up in private collections or museums. Yet the core of the treasure, hundreds of chests filled with coins, jewelry, and religious artifacts, remains a tantalizing secret of the sea, locked beneath shifting sands and coral reefs, waiting for the right combination of knowledge, courage, and luck to bring it to light. The treasure of Moctezuma in Utah. In the remote canyons of southeastern Utah, there are whispers of a treasure that has captured the imagination of adventurers for nearly 2 centuries. This is said to be the legendary treasure of Moctezuma, the gold and jewels of the last Aztec emperor, carried far from Mexico during the early years of Spanish conquest. According to accounts, when Hernan Cortés and his men marched into Tenochtitlan in 1519, they seized immense wealth, including gold, silver, and intricately decorated artifacts from temples and palaces. Much of it was taken back toward the coast to be shipped to Spain, but not all of it made the journey. Legend suggests that a portion of this treasure slipped through the hands of the conquistadors and travelled north, eventually finding its way into the rugged canyons of what is now the American Southwest. Stories about the treasure in Utah first emerged in the mid-19th century, during the years when pioneers and explorers were mapping the territory. In 1863, a man named William H. Jackson, a surveyor for the Union Pacific Railroad, reportedly heard local accounts from Ute Native Americans and Mormon settlers of a hidden cache of gold in a narrow canyon near what is now San Juan County. Jackson's notes mention unusual artifacts, including gold jewelry and small statues, said to have been uncovered by earlier travelers, but then buried again to keep them safe. Over the decades, rumors grew, fueled by sporadic reports from miners, ranchers, and explorers who claimed to have glimpsed gold flakes in the sandy soil or strange symbols etched into canyon walls. One of the most persistent stories involves a man named Jim Rogers, a prospector who in 1892 claimed to have found a cave filled with gold and silver objects while searching for uranium deposits. According to local accounts, Rogers described an enormous room, its walls lined with treasures, including necklaces of turquoise and gold, golden masks, and small chests overflowing with coins stamped with Aztec designs. He reportedly mapped the location in a crude sketch, but before he could return with proper equipment, he vanished under mysterious circumstances. Some say he was killed by bandits, others claim he was simply swallowed by the canyon itself, a labyrinth of hidden passages and narrow cliffs that have swallowed countless travellers over the years. Whatever happened, Rogers' story became the cornerstone of modern searches for Moctezuma's treasure in Utah. The terrain itself is both a blessing and a curse for anyone hoping to locate the treasure. The canyons of southeastern Utah are remote, carved over millennia by wind and water into twisting slot canyons, deep gorges, and hidden alcoves. During summer, temperatures can soar above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and flash floods can sweep through narrow passages with little warning. In winter, snow and ice make access treacherous. It is easy to see why so many explorers have come close to the treasure, or believe they have, without ever finding a definitive trace. Over the years, numerous expeditions have combed the area, from small groups of local adventurers to more organised searches with maps and digging equipment, yet none have ever produced verified artefacts tied to Moctezuma himself. Despite the lack of tangible evidence, the legend continues to draw interest, in part because of the stories told by early settlers and Native Americans. Some versions claim the treasure was carried by Aztec emissaries fleeing Cortés' forces, travelling hundreds of miles north into what is now Utah, guided by a network of rivers and trails. Others suggest the gold was hidden deliberately by Spanish soldiers who feared it might be stolen on the journey to Santa Fe or to the Gulf Coast. Maps thought to be lost have surfaced occasionally, marked with cryptic symbols and references to El Tesoro del Emperador, fueling speculation that the treasure's location was known at one point, if only to a few. In the 20th century, interest in the treasure grew alongside the American fascination with lost riches. In 1933, a local newspaper reported that a retired prospector named Henry Wallace claimed to have discovered gold artifacts in a secluded canyon near the San Juan River. Wallace allegedly took photographs and even retrieved a few pieces, which he showed to neighbours, but he refused to reveal the precise location, citing a family promise to protect the treasure. When he passed away in 1942, the exact canyon was never disclosed, leaving researchers and treasure hunters to chase a series of vague clues, oral histories, and partial maps that may or may not be accurate. Archaeologists and historians remain skeptical, pointing out that no verified Aztec artifacts have been found in Utah, and that many of the stories are based on second-hand accounts or hearsay. Still, the landscape itself provides a plausible hiding place: narrow canyons with countless alcoves, high cliffs that are difficult to scale, and areas accessible only on foot. For those who have ventured deep into these canyons, the silence, the sense of isolation, and the occasional glint of mineral deposits in the sunlight make it easy to imagine a hidden cache of gold waiting undisturbed for centuries. The treasure of Moctezuma in Utah may never be found, or it may lie just beyond the next bend in a narrow canyon, concealed beneath centuries of sediment and rock. What keeps the legend alive is not just the possibility of wealth, but the mystery itself. The idea that history left a trace in a place few have dared to explore fully. Each footprint, each whispered story, and each sketch of a canyon wall carries the hope that someone, someday, will uncover the secret the desert has guarded for hundreds of years. Until then, the canyons of southeastern Utah remain a silent guardian of one of history's most enduring mysteries. The Lost Crown Jewels of Ireland. On a cold July night in 1907, Dublin Castle, the seat of British administration in Ireland, became the setting for one of the most audacious thefts in the country's history. The Bedford Tower, where the Irish crown jewels were kept, stood secure behind heavy doors and strict protocols, yet somehow an unknown hand slipped past every precaution. The jewels themselves, a collection of crowns, sceptres and jewelled insignia, were priceless, containing diamonds, sapphires and rubies that symbolised centuries of history and authority. Their disappearance sent shockwaves through both the government and the public, igniting a mystery that has never been solved. Barely had the news broken before talk began that the jewels were stolen by an insider rather than a random criminal. Sir Arthur Vickers, the Ulster King of Arms and the official guardian of the regalia, faced intense scrutiny as he was responsible for their safety. Reports suggest that Vickers may have been careless, leaving keys accessible or security lapses on routine checks, though no evidence proved outright negligence. The official investigation noted that the thief, or thieves, could have used the castle's numerous hidden corridors and service passages to avoid detection, slipping the jewels out quietly under the cover of night. The streets of Dublin buzzed with talk of betrayal and intrigue, implying secret motives and political plots. Some accounts pointed toward disgruntled officials or soldiers who had access to the castle, while others suggested that the jewels had been smuggled abroad, perhaps sold to collectors or black market dealers in London or Paris. Newspapers of the time speculated endlessly, weaving stories of secret cabals and foreign espionage, though none could provide proof of the jewels' fate. The mystery deepened with each unconfirmed sighting, as jewel-encrusted crowns reportedly appeared in private collections or vanished before anyone could verify their authenticity. In the weeks following the theft, the investigation revealed more puzzling details than answers. A trail of evidence led nowhere, and several suspects were questioned, including servants and local tradesmen, but all denied involvement. The jewels themselves had been specially designed with unique markings and settings that should have made them easily identifiable, yet none ever resurfaced. The public's fascination grew, feeding legends of cursed treasures and hidden vaults in Dublin, where the jewels might have been secreted away, waiting to be discovered decades later. A noteworthy clue came to attention through letters supposedly authored by a minor nobleman associated with Dublin Castle. He claimed to have overheard plans of the theft months before it occurred, and described a small gang of conspirators plotting to take the jewels during a routine inspection. Whether the letters were genuine or a hoax remains unclear, but they added a sense of possibility that the regalia might not have been lost to history entirely. Treasure hunters and amateur sleuths pored over maps, floor plans, and old documents, searching for patterns or hidden compartments that could explain the jewels' disappearance. The facts and folklore quickly intertwined, spawning haunting stories about the jewels. Some claimed the diamonds and sapphires held a supernatural power, and that those who attempted to recover them without right or caution faced ruin or misfortune. The tale of the crown jewels grew, merging historical record with folklore as Dubliners recounted sightings of men carrying heavy chests at night, or strange ships leaving the harbour under cover of fog, their cargo unseen by authorities. Such stories blurred the line between truth and imagination, but they also ensured that the lost jewels remained firmly in the public consciousness for generations. Speculation had, by the mid-20th century, expanded to include global schemes. Some historians theorized that the jewels may have been stolen to fund political movements, or even to finance an escape for certain influential figures during the turbulent early years of Irish independence. Others maintained that the jewels had been broken down into individual stones and sold to jewelers or private collectors, making them nearly impossible to trace. Even with decades of research, every lead seemed to vanish as quickly as it appeared, reinforcing the sense that the jewels had been spirited away deliberately, with knowledge of their origin lost to time. The quest to recover the treasures has spanned into modern times. In 2002, a renewed investigation by Dublin police reviewed the original case files, hoping to apply modern forensic methods to century-old evidence, but even contemporary technology could not resolve the mystery. The jewels themselves remain a symbol of Ireland's historical legacy and the vulnerability of even the most secure treasures. Scholars, collectors, and enthusiasts continue to debate the likelihood of their survival, imagining scenarios in which the regalia might lie forgotten in a hidden chamber, a private vault, or even scattered across private collections under new guises. Wrapped in enigma, the saga of the crown jewels continues to spark curiosity, highlighting that the greatest treasures are often those told through stories rather than coins or jewels. Each retelling emphasizes the audacity of the theft, the skill of the unknown thief, and the enduring question of where such magnificent items might be today. Dublin Castle, still standing in the heart of the city, now houses government offices and hosts ceremonies, yet its walls carry the memory of that fateful night in 1907 when history shifted and a piece of Ireland's heritage vanished into uncertainty. The lost crown jewels of Ireland may never be found, and yet their legend endures, woven into the fabric of Dublin's streets, whispered in local taverns, and examined by scholars and treasure hunters alike. Their story is one of human ambition, secrecy, and the irresistible allure of wealth and history combined. A reminder that some mysteries persist because they are protected not by locks, but by time itself, hiding in plain sight while daring each new generation to look closer, think harder, and imagine the impossible. The Lost Rapanui Tablets. Easter Island, remote and windswept, has long fascinated explorers with its giant stone statues, but in the 19th century it also held a secret in the form of wooden tablets inscribed with strange glyphs. These tablets, known today as the Rapanui or Rongorongo tablets, were said to contain the written history of the island, including genealogies, rituals, and perhaps even lost knowledge of the ancient culture. Scholars and travellers who visited the island in the 1800s documented their existence. Yet by the late 19th century, most of the tablets had disappeared, leaving behind only fragments and mysterious accounts. A French missionary named Father Eugene Héraud visited the island in the 1860s and described seeing wooden boards carved with symbols that no one could read. He noted that some were kept in private homes, while others were stored in communal buildings, but even then islanders treated the tablets with caution, suggesting they held sacred knowledge. Héraud managed to copy a few symbols in his journals, providing the first glimpses into Rongorongo, yet he warned that the full meaning was a puzzle that would challenge anyone who tried to decode it. By the time collectors and scientists arrived decades later, the situation had changed dramatically. By 1868, the arrival of foreign ships and traders on Easter Island had begun to disrupt local life in profound ways. Diseases brought from Europe and South America devastated the population, killing perhaps half of the islanders, and cultural knowledge began to vanish along with the elders who carried it. Many of the wooden tablets were reportedly burned or used as firewood during this time, either for warmth or as part of new religious practices introduced by missionaries. Others were stolen or taken abroad, ending up in museums, private collections, or simply lost during transit. Few concrete records exist of their journeys, and today only a handful of the original tablets remain scattered across institutions around the world. An English adventurer, William Thompson, is said to have taken several tablets in the 1870s, shipping them to Europe under the pretense of collecting artifacts for study. Rumours persisted that some of these pieces were later sold to wealthy collectors in Paris or London, disappearing into private hands where they remain unrecorded. Other accounts claim that Captain Alvaro de Mendana, decades earlier, may have noticed similar wooden boards during a brief stop on the island, though he left no official reports. Each story hints at the possibility that dozens of tablets could still exist, hidden in attics, warehouses, or distant museums, waiting for someone to recognise their importance. The tablets themselves were carved from local woods, often with meticulous care and intricate designs that appear to follow strict patterns. Each line of glyphs runs horizontally or vertically, containing figures that resemble humans, birds, fish, and abstract shapes, all combined in sequences that defy modern understanding. Attempts to decode the symbols have spanned over a century, involving linguists, mathematicians, and cryptographers, yet no one has definitively unlocked their meaning. Some theories suggest they are purely mnemonic, designed to help remember oral traditions, while others insist they may contain full texts of history or ritual instructions. Elders on the island remembered the tablets as symbols of learning and authority, transmitted through successive chieftains and priests. These oral histories hinted that the boards were dangerous in the wrong hands and could bring misfortune if handled carelessly. Such warnings may have contributed to the disappearance of many tablets, as families either hid them to protect them or destroyed them to prevent outsiders from profaning sacred knowledge. Today, the scarcity of these objects fuels the allure and mystery of Easter Island's written past, making them some of the most sought-after lost artifacts in the world. Museum collectors in the early 20th century undertook urgent searches for any remaining tablets. Institutions in Santiago, New York and Paris documented acquisitions, but many records are vague, listing generic Easter Island tablets without clear provenance. Scholars such as Catherine Routledge, who led an expedition in 1914 to 1915, carefully recorded observations and photographs of the island and its artifacts, hoping to preserve a fading culture. Her notes provide crucial evidence of the tablet's existence and hint at where additional boards might have been hidden. Even today, researchers rely on these early documents to piece together a history that is otherwise lost. Curiosity about the missing tablets frequently fuels imaginative theories involving secret caches and vaults. Some believe that a few boards may lie buried in remote parts of the island, concealed beneath sand or under the roots of trees where they were left centuries ago. Others suggest that a private collector somewhere in Europe unknowingly holds one, mistaking it for a decorative item rather than a priceless relic of vanished civilization. Each unverified sighting or rumour keeps hope alive that the secrets of Rongorongo might yet return to the light of study and understanding. Hundreds of years later, the lost Rapanui tablets continue to enthrall historians, archaeologists, and treasure seekers. They represent not only a written language that challenges the modern mind, but also the resilience of a culture that survived catastrophic population loss and foreign influence. The idea that these boards might still exist somewhere, waiting to reveal the thoughts and traditions of an ancient people, fuels a search that blends archaeology with imagination. Every rumour, sketch, and fragment is a reminder that some treasures are lost not because they were ordinary, but because they hold knowledge too precious to be left unguarded. The Rapanui tablets stand as a reminder of human inquisitiveness and the vulnerability of cultural heritage. While the original boards may never be recovered, their legacy persists in drawings, photographs, and scholarly records, as well as in the enduring allure of Easter Island itself. Perhaps one day, a hidden tablet will surface, finally allowing humanity to read the words of a civilization that spoke through wood and glyphs, bridging centuries and connecting a distant past to the present. Until then, the lost Rapanui tablets remain one of the world's most enigmatic and haunting mysteries, a silent echo of a vanished story carved into the heart of a remote island. The treasure of Alaric I. The fall of Rome in 410 AD shocked the ancient world as the Visigoth king Alaric I led his warriors through the city's gates, claiming gold, silver and priceless artifacts for his people. Contemporary accounts describe a city stunned by the loss, while Alaric's forces carried off plunder that had accumulated over centuries, including jewellery, ceremonial objects and sacred vessels from temples. Historians have long debated the scale of the spoils, but it is clear that what he took was immense, enough to provide for his army and leave a legacy that has haunted treasure hunters for centuries. Alaric's sudden death shortly after the sack complicated the story of his wealth, as the king was buried in 410 somewhere near the Busento River in southern Italy. According to legend, his body was interred along with all the treasure he had collected from Rome, a burial site intended to honour him and ensure that the riches would remain with the Visigoth people. Local accounts tell of the river being diverted temporarily to allow the construction of a tomb in the riverbed, with workers buried afterward to preserve the secret. The precise location has never been recorded, making it one of history's most tantalizing mysteries. Ancient texts by Procopius and Jordanes describe the burial in ways both awe-inspiring and cryptic, emphasizing secrecy and ritual. Jordanes, writing in the 6th century, claimed that Alaric's grave was hidden by a river being diverted, then returned to its course, effectively erasing any traces of the tomb. These accounts, while centuries removed, have formed the backbone of speculation, inspiring countless expeditions over the years. Archaeologists and treasure hunters alike have scoured Calabria, searching riverbeds and surrounding hills, but no definitive evidence of the burial has ever been found. Medieval Europe buzzed with rumours of Alaric's treasure, fueling dreams of a fortune concealed in the hills of southern Italy. Some accounts describe gold and silver vessels stolen from Roman temples, rings adorned with precious stones, and crowns that once belonged to emperors. Others claim religious relics were among the spoils, increasing the allure for both scholars and fortune seekers. By the 15th century, chroniclers already reported that local farmers had occasionally claimed to stumble upon fragments of buried treasure, though these finds were small and rarely verified. The Visigoth king himself was a figure both admired and feared, remembered for his strategic genius and his ability to command loyalty from a diverse people. His life before Rome was marked by campaigns across the Balkans and the Italian peninsula, during which he accumulated wealth both by negotiation and conquest. Scholars have noted that Alaric's forces were disciplined and methodical, suggesting that the treasure he amassed was carefully organised and likely intended for both immediate use and symbolic burial, demonstrating both power and piety in equal measure. Contemporary searches for the treasure use historical records, geological studies, and even satellite imagery, though no definitive findings have emerged. Rivers shift courses over centuries, and centuries of human activity have likely disturbed or destroyed evidence. Despite this, the legend persists, with amateur and professional hunters alike drawn by the promise of uncovering riches that could reshape our understanding of the Visigoths' place in European history. Each expedition brings hope, yet the mystery endures, as if the treasure itself resists discovery. Local traditions in Calabria hint at knowledge passed down through generations, often spoken in hushed tones among villagers. Some say that old family stories recount strange constructions near the Busento, with stone markers or unusual earthworks that might indicate a hidden tomb. Others speak of rivers that run strangely at certain times of year, hinting at submerged structures. While folklore is rarely considered definitive, it provides tantalizing clues that align with ancient records, keeping the legend alive and linking historical texts with the lived experiences of those in the region. The sack of Rome itself provides context for the treasure's composition. Alaric's forces reportedly took everything from imperial treasuries to private homes of senators and wealthy citizens, including silver plates, coins, jewellery, and even sacred objects that had adorned temples and churches. Some historians speculate that Alaric may have had the foresight, to catalogue or secure the loot for future use, which could explain why the treasure was buried in such a secretive manner. Its composition would have reflected both personal wealth and items of political significance, making the potential find even more valuable to historians today. As Renaissance thinkers studied classical records, they increasingly tied Alaric's legendary hoard to real-world locations, intensifying the treasure's allure. Italian antiquarians in the 16th and 17th centuries speculated that remnants might still exist in Calabria, and attempts to locate the tomb were sometimes sanctioned by local authorities. While these efforts yielded no verified treasure, they did reinforce the notion that Alaric's burial was deliberate and elaborate, involving complex planning to ensure that the king and his spoils remained undisturbed for posterity, or perhaps for eternity. It is possible, some suggest, that what once was a vast hoard has been fragmented or erased by centuries of environmental and human impact. Earthquakes, floods, and human construction projects have transformed the landscape, complicating the search. Yet the idea that even fragments of the Visigothic hoard might still survive fuels continued investigation. Each clue, whether an ancient coin, a buried stone, or a curious document, reignites hope that something tangible can be connected to Alaric's legendary wealth, bridging the gap between myth and material history. The legendary treasure of Alaric stands as a symbol of the turbulent collision between the declining Roman Empire and the ascending migratory peoples of late antiquity. It embodies both conquest and cultural transformation, offering a tangible link to an era of upheaval and ambition. Historians argue that understanding its potential contents could illuminate not only Visigothic wealth, but also the broader circulation of goods, art, and sacred objects in the collapsing Roman world. In this sense, the treasure is more than gold and jewels, it is a key to the past. The true site of Alaric's tomb, along with its fabled treasures, continues to baffle researchers and treasure hunters after centuries of inquiry. Researchers continue to return to Calabria, using modern technology alongside careful study of historical sources to refine possible locations. The idea that the treasure lies somewhere, hidden beneath centuries of earth and water, keeps the legend alive and attracts both serious scholars and adventurous treasure hunters alike. Each effort reminds us that history can be both tangible and elusive, and that some secrets, no matter how well documented, are meant to endure. Alaric's burial and the treasure it contained have achieved a near-mythic status, inspiring stories, books, and speculation for over 15 centuries. While some dismiss the treasure as a legend exaggerated over time, the detailed accounts in contemporary chronicles suggest that the hoard once existed and was significant. The secrecy surrounding its interment, coupled with the dramatic death of a king whose life and campaigns were already legendary, ensures that the story of Alaric's treasure continues to capture imaginations, blending history, archaeology, and the thrill of the unknown. The pursuit of Alaric's treasure endures, a testament to the fleeting nature of memory and the lasting strength of legend. Rivers change, landscapes shift, and civilizations rise and fall, yet the hope that a hidden tomb holds gold and history remains compelling. The tale of Alaric I is not simply about lost wealth, it is about ambition, strategy, and the lengths to which humans will go to preserve power and legacy. Somewhere in southern Italy, hidden beneath soil and water, the king's riches lie in silent testimony, waiting for the right moment or the right seeker to reveal themselves. The lost treasure of the Merchant Royal. The Merchant Royal set sail in 1641 with the sun glinting on the English Channel, a massive ship laden with wealth from the New World and Asia, destined for London. The cargo included silver from Spanish colonies, gold coins, and precious gems collected from trading voyages that spanned oceans. Sailors whispered of its immense value, calling it the El Dorado of the seas, and few could imagine the fortune resting in its holds. At that time, England was embroiled in tensions that would soon erupt into civil war, and every ounce of treasure mattered to the crown and merchants alike. Storm clouds gathered as the Merchant Royal approached Cornwall, and the sea began to churn with unusual ferocity. Eyewitness accounts from local fishermen describe waves crashing against the hull, splintering wood and tossing barrels overboard. Captain Thomas Wake was known for his steady hand, but even he could not prevent disaster when the ship foundered near Land's End. The vessel sank suddenly, taking with it billions in today's estimated value and consigning hundreds of lives to the cold waters. Survivors clung to Flotsam, carrying stories that would grow into legend over the centuries. News of the sunken treasure soon reached London, capturing the imaginations of merchants and adventurers eager for untold fortunes. Some believed gold coins from the Spanish Main had been packed in barrels, alongside silver ingots and chests of rare gemstones. Letters from merchants of the period mention the Merchant Royal as a loss of national importance, its cargo described as beyond measure, fueling a fascination that would endure long after the war, and political upheaval changed England forever. The promise of the ship's wealth became both a hope and an obsession. Late 17th century salvage attempts saw divers using the era's rudimentary technology, grappling hooks and diving bells, to probe the depths. Accounts mention men descending into the cold Atlantic waters near the Lizard Peninsula, though none returned with treasure of significant size. The currents around Cornwall were treacherous, and shifting sandbanks buried any trace of the ship quickly. Over time, the Merchant Royal became part of local lore, with stories of phantom ships and glimmers of gold glimpsed through stormy waves, but no one could claim certainty of the wreck's resting place. The cargo manifest of the Merchant Royal listed not just gold and silver, but also silk, spices and other commodities treasured across Europe. Letters from East India Company officials indicate that the ship had returned from a lucrative trade route, collecting silver from South America and goods from Portuguese colonies. This combination of currency and luxury goods made the wreck an irresistible target for treasure hunters, yet the challenges of deep-sea recovery in the 1600s made it nearly impossible to locate or retrieve any of its riches. Piracy and privateering along Cornwall's shores soon wove themselves into the Merchant Royal legend. Stories suggest that rival captains had hoped to seize the treasure even before it sank, and some claimed to follow the ship in the weeks leading to the disaster. These narratives added layers of intrigue, suggesting that the gold and silver were sought not only by lawful merchants, but also by opportunists willing to risk the stormy seas for untold wealth. Over time, these stories blurred fact and fiction, creating a tapestry of suspense that continues to captivate modern explorers. Maps of the period often marked dangerous waters near the southwestern tip of England, with ominous warnings, hinting at wrecks like the Merchant Royal. Mariners knew of strong currents, hidden rocks and sudden storms, and yet the allure of treasure kept many willing to brave the dangers. Diaries and ship logs from the 1640s sometimes reference rumours of the lost gold, and a few entries describe men being drawn to the coast by the promise of unimaginable reward. Even in its absence, the ship's influence shaped the ambitions of those who sailed the channel. With improved diving equipment in the 18th century, treasure hunters could explore underwater sites more effectively. Divers sought remnants of the Merchant Royal along the Cornish coast, often returning with nothing but fragments of timber or scattered coins. The treasure remained elusive, as if the sea itself was guarding its secret. Modern explorers believe that sand, tidal shifts, and centuries of ocean currents may have dispersed the cargo far from the original wreck site, complicating any effort to recover the full bounty. Island lore tells of sudden, shining flashes beneath the water, thought to be the sunken gold of the Merchant Royal. Fishermen often warned against lingering too long in certain coves, claiming that storms could appear without warning, punishing those who sought the treasure. These tales, while likely exaggerated, preserved the story across generations, ensuring that even when no physical evidence could be found, the legend persisted. Cornwall's rugged coast, steeped in shipwreck lore, became a natural stage for imagining the lost riches resting silently under the waves. The analysis of the 17th century records continues today, with historians trying to piece together the cargo's value and composition. Recent estimates suggest that the bullion alone could be worth billions today, while the additional luxury goods might double the total. Scientists and treasure hunters employ sonar, remote-operated vehicles, and metal detectors in hopes of locating fragments of the wreck. Yet the Merchant Royal refuses to reveal its secrets, a challenge as much of history and perseverance as it is of technology and skill. Maritime archaeologists emphasise the historical importance of the Merchant Royal beyond its monetary value. The ship was part of England's growing global trade network, linking Europe with the Americas and Asia, and its loss provides insight into the risks of commerce and navigation in the 1600s. Recovering even a small portion of the treasure could illuminate trade practices, shipbuilding techniques, and the lives of sailors aboard these ocean-crossing vessels. Each search is therefore both an adventure and an effort to understand the period more fully. The mystique of the Merchant Royal has inspired treasure hunters for nearly 4 centuries, blending adventure, danger, and the promise of wealth into a story that captures imaginations worldwide. Books, documentaries, and local tales keep the ship alive in memory, and every new expedition rekindles hope that the El Dorado of the seas may one day be found. The combination of historical records, folklore, and the sheer scale of the treasure continues to make the Merchant Royal one of the most famous and sought-after lost treasures in maritime history. Cornwall's coastal waters still conceal a treasure that has captured imaginations for centuries. Divers descend into icy depths with state-of-the-art equipment, driven by centuries of myth and the tantalizing possibility of gold, silver, and gemstones. Each failed attempt only deepens the mystery, reinforcing the idea that the Merchant Royal was lost not merely to the sea, but to time itself. Somewhere beneath the waves, the ship's wealth lies waiting, a silent testament to ambition, commerce, and the enduring power of legend.